Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Adidas. Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
If you've been a renter, you know it's stressful to find the perfect place. But Zillow Rentals make it easy. They have filters for pretty much everything, so you can find a rental that's big enough for entertaining your friends, but small enough they won't crash all weekend. Find your sweet spot on ZillowRentals.com.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? This is the Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson here, and you are listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with Chris Samsa from sportofprowrestling.com. On today's show, we were previewing G1 Climax 31, answering listener questions, and covering all the latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy Josh Smith is still out this week. He's in Michigan for the family funeral. So you guys keep Josh in your thoughts and prayers this week. But I do have Chris from Sport Pro Wrestling, our man, frequent guest here on the show. Chris, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm okay. I'm a touch under the weather with something other than COVID. I got the swab in the nose, but I'm coming out of it. I think it's allergies. Chicago allergy season is brutal right now. So if I sound different, that's what that's all about. Or if I mute myself and disappear for a second, it's because I got to do a big sniffle. But generally, I'm doing good. I'm feeling better today than I am yesterday, because yesterday I probably wouldn't have been sitting here with you. So happy it worked out. Glad I can be here for the G1. It is G1 season, and that is it's my favorite season of the year. Regardless of how the rest of the world feels about it, I'm excited, and it's going to be good. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, man, I can't help but get hyped up for G1. Yes, I know the lineups it's not as strong as in previous years, but it's G1. There's still a ton of great wrestlers. There's going to be a ton of great matches, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, what's not to be excited about? I mean, bunch of singles matches, really good wrestlers. I mean, New Japan Pro Wrestling still the best wrestling on the planet. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In ring, they do it the best. And I don't know that I will get into it, but I don't know that I wholeheartedly agree that the lineups aren't great or aren't strong. It's just that they're not exciting. Right. And we see an American promotion in AEW that's doing a lot of exciting things right now. So the difference is that those exciting things are entrances, and music hitting and somebody crazy walking out, as opposed to like what's actually happening in the ring. So I think that for those who enjoy pro wrestling in a ring, the G1 is still going to be the place to be for the next month.
Yep. And before we dive into the G1, two quick things. First of all, our 200th episode of Keeping It Strong Style. We are 2 weeks away from the 200th episode, and we want you guys to be a part of it. If you guys would send your favorite memories and thoughts of the show in a short audio clip, 1 to 2 minutes long, or if you don't like your voice, you can send in a written note to me, and we will include all the audio in the 200th episode of Keeping It Strong Style. So you can email me your audio or note to jeremy@socialsuplex.com by September 25th, and you'll hear all that audio and notes on the 200th episode in 2 weeks. Also, our good friend Rocky Romero reached out. He was on the 100th episode and wants to be a part of the 200th episode. So Rocky will also be on the show joining us. So mark your calendars, 2 weeks, get your audio in. It's going to be a fun episode. And then the second thing we got to talk about before we get to G1, the thing that's been blowing up Twitter, it's taken Twitter by storm, the Suzuki Incident, which happened last week on AEW Dynamite. Jon Moxley defeated Minoru Suzuki on Dynamite, but, you know, we didn't get something on Dynamite. We didn't get the Kaze ni Nare that we normally get during a Minoru Suzuki entrance, and this just set Twitter on blaze. And friend of the show, Dan Coffin, asks, what were you doing at the exact moment of the Suzuki Incident?
I was watching Dynamite, ready to fire off a snarky tweet, which I did shortly thereafter, and I didn't expect to need it. But I was watching Dynamite, and I immediately noticed that they turned the music off, and I was like, oh, they must be running really late.
Yep.
That is not something that I am a fan of AEW. I was at All Out. I think they do a good job as American wrestling goes. And I kind of understand that Tony Khan is a wrestling fan. And I think he cut JR's mic during Kaze ni Nare during the pay-per-view. So like, it's not like he doesn't know or they don't know that that's a thing. So I was very surprised they turned the music off. I was very surprised the match went as short as it did, even though obviously if you look at the clock, you know what happened. So I, of course, pulled up the New Japan match and fired out the tweet and got all those hundreds of retweets and thousands of likes. And it'll be my second most engaging tweet of the year, probably. So that I got that going for me, I guess. But yeah, it was, but really the Suzuki Incident stems from a different tweet of someone taking it remarkably seriously, and now it has turned into a meme, which is incredible. But yeah, I was watching Dynamite. Where were you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I too was also watching Dynamite over at my girlfriend's house, and yeah, I was all jacked up. Suzuki versus Moxley. Suzuki's coming out. I'm getting ready to scream Kaze ni Nare in my girlfriend's ear, and then the music just cuts off. And I was just like, what? What's going on? How can you cut off Kaze ni Nare? But Dynamite, it's a packed 2 hours, man, and they run every minute out. And yeah, obviously they're short on time, had to cut the music, but obviously it seems like AEW is going to turn this into a positive. Suzuki and Archer, Suzuki-gun reunion. They're going to be calling out Moxley and Kingston this week. They're running with the Suzuki Incident on their Twitter and social media, so it's now canon. And the memes were just hilarious. I contributed a Nick Aldis quote into the Suzuki Incident, so just some great stuff.
It's really phenomenal how the internet can take something and make it into something great, really.
Yeah. Similar question from EMJ Does PR, but he also asked how you felt and the impact it's had on your wrestling fandom.
Well, I'm no longer a fan. I'm merely an analyst now. I mean, I respect the hustle of AEW turning it around and making it something of their own. And you know what? I respect the hustle of someone taking it super seriously too. So it's a really big deal to some people.
Yeah, I mean, I love New Japan. I love Suzuki. I love screaming Kaze Nina Ray. But I don't think I love it to the point of where I'm going to, throw my neck out there and get slaughtered for it.
I'm certainly not calling for heads either.
Yeah. But I'm willing to jump in on all the jokes, though. Question here from Hawaiian Punch VB. Is it time to close the Forbidden Door forever after the Suzuki incident?
I think we should open it wider. I mean, the Forbidden Door is just a hallway at this point. So I don't even know if there's a door attached anymore. So I don't think that's a door worth closing at this very moment.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting exciting matchups and moments. I mean, clearly, yes, Suzuki Incident was, obviously not the best thing to happen, but we're getting a lot of great matchups, a lot of great buzz. It's helping, New Japan, get some kind of buzz, some kind of positive talk in the, the wrestling social verse. Next question here from Dom Homie 101. Thoughts on Suzuki's appearance on AEW Dynamite? Will we ever see a New Japan guy get a victory in the AEW ring? And do people in Conland do a better job of introducing the NJPW wrestlers to the audience?
I don't know that that's what I don't know that that's the purpose of appearances on Dynamite or AEW programming. I don't know that, considering these guys aren't long-term characters on their show. So these guys are making one-off appearances, and I think that AEW, by putting them in the ring, mostly with Jon Moxley, makes them into a pretty big deal, right? Because he's a big star for them. He's one of their top guys. So you've got Jon Moxley fighting these Japanese wrestlers, and you've got to figure that that's because they mean something in New Japan. So I think that kind of by proxy, they end up getting some attention. Now, would I like to see someone come over that is a little more of a questionable match, right? Where like Moxley could lose and it could build to something different, and they could set something up for a New Japan show or even just another AEW show. I mean, that I think would be the next step if the relationship stays the way it is and gets deeper. I think at some point you got to send someone over that can beat Moxley and it'll mean something, right? I mean, even if that's Tanahashi and they're waiting on the US title match, I think that that's the next step. But otherwise, I think it's cool to get some of these guys out here in front of fans. I mean, that's the thing that they all seem to say or tweet about or talk about kind of behind the scenes, is like they all want to come to America and they want to work AEW because they want to work in front of a big, loud building. And because that's what they're used to and that's what pro wrestling is all about. And they haven't had a chance to do that in 18 to 20 months now. So, the more they want to come over and get those big cheers and feel good about themselves, that bring them on over and put them in the ring with Moxley or Kingston or Archer or whoever, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
And I think that it is a cool relationship, and it's something cool that New Japan can give them the time to get over there and do it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, man. And first of all, I think that, you can kind of consider Jon Moxley a New Japan guy. I mean, he was the IWGP US champion for, over a year. And so he's a quote-unquote New Japan guy that's, being pushed very hard and getting wins. And also, you look at some of the guys that they brought in, like Hikuleo. He picked up some wins on Dark. Ren Narita picked up a win on Dark. So when they bring these New Japan guys in, they do try to give them some credibility and build them up as they are headed into their big programs. And like you said, they are not, mainstay guys. You can't spend a whole ton of TV time building them up and trying to educate the AEW fans. I think, the New Japan partnership, that's a kind of a cool thing for fans who are in the know and who know New Japan and are big wrestling fans. It's kind of a cool thing for them. So if you already know, if you don't know, then you just have to catch up. And so, like you mentioned, I think it's great seeing guys like Kojima and Suzuki come over and get these big matches. And we're even seeing it spill over where we had like Archer competing on Resurgence. So a lot of great things are coming from this partnership. I thought Suzuki appearance, obviously besides the music getting cut off, I thought it was great. I mean, it was a short match, but it was short. It was violent. hard hitting, and clearly it's leading to more stuff. Suzuki's in the U.S. through the duration of the G1 Climax. He's doing his big independent tour all over the Indies, and then it looks like all his Wednesdays are free, and clearly they're going to be doing some stuff with Archer and Suzuki and Moxley and Kingston, and it's probably going to be a big match at Arthur Ashe Stadium in a tag match.
Yeah, and I think you have to include the All Out appearance in Suzuki's, appearance with AEW, and that was huge. I mean, that was a huge moment for everyone in the building. It was a huge moment for the pay-per-view, and if you didn't know who that guy was, you knew he was a big deal. So, I mean, to be truthful, like, there's no introduction needed for a guy who gets that kind of reaction. That's when you head to the Google machine and you figure out who this guy is and why these people are so excited. Like, you can't baby step everyone through everything. And if you're interested in wrestling outside of AEW or even just the American bubble, like, you can find some stuff about Minoru Suzuki after a reaction like that, and after, honestly, the internet's reaction to cutting off his music. So
right.
I think this could be one of the best things that's happened for Suzuki. And not that he's not one of the most popular Japanese wrestlers in America anyway, but he probably made some new fans by this whole thing.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things where a lot of people are accustomed to the WWE style things where every 5 minutes they're reminding you of something and showing a replay and hammering home their verbiage and their terminology and what they want you to know. And it's like AEW just treats their fans more smarter than that. Like, they'll tell you once, and then they'll bring it out. If you don't know, then yeah, there's this fun thing called Google. There's this fun thing called YouTube. You can slap a name in it and figure it out.
Yeah, and I don't know if the plan was to do this tag match or if this came of it as a make good, but either way, it's going to be fun too. I mean, and a guy like Eddie Kingston's probably over the moon,
he's salivating.
Get in on that stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, listen, it turns out a positive. And I think who knows, maybe there's another appearance left in Suzuki in the US with AEW. Like you said, he's here forever. So I mean, he's here for a long time. He's got dates through, he's got a lot of dates. So yeah. He's doing a full US indie tour, and that man's he's gonna work himself to the bone. So yeah, it's almost like it almost feels like a retirement tour. Like, I don't think that's what it is, but like, he's doing that much where it's like he's gonna go everywhere, and he took every booking he could get, and good on him, man. Like, because he had a good run in the G1 last year, so he definitely could have just stayed home and done that. But he was probably like, hey, I want to get out and do something a little different this fall.
Right, and it's just one of those things where, like, he's probably just living it out. Like, you never know when your last day is going to be, when your last match is going to be. He loves working in the U.S., which I'm sure there's a ton of guys he wanted to work. He's supposed to do a lot of stuff WrestleMania weekend in 2020 before COVID hit, so I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff that he wants to do, get it out of the way, because you never know. I mean, it could get worse. Lockdown's going to get worse. He might have a hard time getting to the U.S., so while I can get over, yeah, why not come in here, work with young guys, work with some dream matches, get on AEW TV.
More Suzuki, more better.
Yeah. So let's shift gears here and talk about G1 Climax 31. If we have any new listeners or anybody new to New Japan, I'll give you a quick overview here. So G1 Climax, there are 20 participants split into 2 equal blocks, A block and B block. Each entrant will wrestle each other in the block to score points. Winning a match scores 2 points. A time limit draw scores 1 point. Losing a match, double countout, or double DQ scores 0 points. All matches, excluding the final, have a 30-minute time limit, making draws plausible. The wrestler with the most points at the end of the final nights of block action will win their block and move to the final, which will see the winner of the A block face the winner of the B block. If the blocks are finalized and there is a tie on points, the winner is decided via head-to-head tiebreaker. That means if, for example, Okada and Tanahashi finished with equal points, but Okada defeated Tanahashi in the block match, then Okada will progress to the final. Whoever wins the final will officially be the winner of the G1 Climax 31. They reward a contract guaranteeing them the right to challenge for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship at Wrestle Kingdom 16. We had a question here from Rambone Slam Pig. is Goto going to curse us with another 2018 style Bullet Club get DQ'd constantly, or is this going to go in any other direction?
I mean, there's a lot of Bullet Club presence in this tournament, but I don't think that's the direction. And that's just a gut instinct. I think if anything, you're going to see House of Torture BS, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bullet Club Classic or whatever, Bullet Club original guys, I think, Chase Owens, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, like I think those guys are going to do their usual stuff, not necessarily the DQ thing. I worry about Evil and Yujiro. I mean, Yujiro could be a wash. Like they could absolutely do that thing with Yujiro, with the presence. Oh, and Kenta too. I guess Kenta, I think he's been pretty good in the G1s too, where he's just kind of, actually just overall, he hasn't been super egregious with the cheating. So, but I think you could see it from Yujiro and Evil. I think that's the direction that group is going to end up going in. But I don't know that I see a like DQ every match thing happening, because Evil, I'm sure, is going to be a player, someone who's going to be in it all the way to the end or close to the end. But yeah, you could punt on Yujiro and do some goofy stuff with that block.
Yeah, I think Evil's probably going to be the main culprit that will have a lot of interference in his matchup. I think another guy to look out for is Tama Tonga, just based off of his last G1. I think it was 2018 when that had the whole Bullet Club Civil War going on, and he was going after Kenny and all that stuff, and he just didn't really have a great G1. There was a lot of interference like Fale and Tangaloa and stuff like that. So I think Evil and Tama Tonga will be the main victims there. But Yujiro was in G1 last year. There wasn't a ton cheating from him. And like you mentioned, Kenta, he's usually pretty good, and his cheating is not that bad. I mean, when he does cheat, but it's not like Evil and you have 20 people running out. So yeah, it shouldn't be as heavy. And I know there's a lot of Bullet Club, but it shouldn't be as bad as we think it's going to be. Then next question here from EMJ Does PR. Question for Samsa. We hear a lot of complaints about match times and want to better understand. Are New Japan match times actually trending longer? Looking at the past couple G1 average match length, are they relatively the same, or are they also trending longer?
So let's just work backwards. So G1 30, average match length, 15 minutes and 43 seconds. 29, 15:09. 28, 14:24, 27, 14:16, 26, 12:42, and G1 25, 12:53. So between G1 26, which was 2016, and G1 27, which was 2017, there's about a minute and a half jump up in the average. From there, it has crept up a touch to last year. Last year was the highest at 15:43. So yes, but also no, right? I mean, it's hard to say. Are New Japan matches in general getting longer? Yeah. So the average match this calendar year is longer than the previous three, which is the years that I have full data on. So, but we also haven't had the G1 yet. And the G1 actually brings the average match length down, because especially in singles matches, if I just kind of parse that out, it brings it down. I mean, 15:43 as an average is not a lot. Like that's not a long average match. I mean, when the longest match you can have is 30 minutes, and a lot of these New Japan main events right now are going 30 plus, around 30, but over, right? You're going to see the average come down when you have 90 matches over the next month. That will probably average about 15 and a half to 16 minutes. So that's gonna drop the average down a bit. So it's hard for me to analyze without full sets of data. But once the G1's in, I'll be able to really, give a better answer on that probably. But in general, yeah, I mean, I think the main events have been a little longer than they had been before, but I don't think it's as bad as people think it is. I think people are just complaining.
Yeah, and also too, it's almost a victim of circumstance. Obviously, they feel like they have to give people their money's worth, and they want to have these 2.5, 3 hour shows. And when you only have a card that has 5 or 6 matches, matches have to go long. When they want to give people a big main event and send them home happy. So I can understand why they've been trying to bump the match time, and even matches like tag title matches that normally wouldn't get a 34, 35 plus minute times. They're going that long. But yeah, ultimately, I think it's just because of COVID that we're seeing such a dramatic increase in the main event time picture there.
I mean, but we also had a main event at the first night of the MetLife Dome shows that went 17 minutes.
True. Yeah.
Right. So I don't think it's hard and fast. I think that there are some of these matches and stories that merit having good long matches. I mean, a 3-way tag match, you got 6 guys in there.
Yeah.
That's fine for that to go long. That makes sense. Like if you're bringing reality into it, it makes sense that type of match is going to go longer than your standard tag or your singles match. So, and I can kind of defend that all day, but I mean, I understand, I think both sides of the equation there. I think AEW Dynamite last week had less than 38 minutes of actual wrestling on it also. So I don't know. There's a balance between those two things, I think.
Yeah.
So, when I look at a 2-hour show that had, 37 minutes plus of actual wrestling, and most of that gets cut in half or cut by a quarter or so with a commercial break in the middle of matches, because apparently that's the least important thing on their TV show that they can. I mean, you can't do a commercial break in the middle of a promo, right? Unless it's Chris Jericho reading off a list. But like, I don't know, when you're cutting into the actual pro wrestling on your pro wrestling show, I start to have questions about, what the motives are. Right. And I get it, right? Like that's a TV show. Everyone's got a reason for everything, but you're telling me, and I could run it back on what it actually got aired. And I'm sure it's probably 25 minutes that actually got aired of actual pro wrestling on the pro wrestling show on Dynamite. So, I mean, there's somewhere in between those two things. There's somewhere in between the long New Japan, main event style, which has become just the house style, and not actually showing pro wrestling on your pro wrestling show.
Yeah, definitely that kind of hard balance to find. I understand. Well, obviously, with a 2-hour TV show, you have a ton of stars. You got a ton of segments, a ton of stuff you got to do. But ultimately, that's what always keeps me coming back to New Japan. The straight bell to bell action. Not getting cut off by commercials. There are promos, and they're in the backstage, and you can watch those if you want. But if you want straight wrestling, man, New Japan is still the product for you. So now let's dive into these blocks of competitors. To kind of talk about their history in the G1, our most anticipated match we're looking for, their chances of winning the G1, and then any interesting stats that you found, Chris. So let's start with the A block. We'll start with the Golden Star, Kota Abushi, his 7th entry, 5th consecutive. He won the tournament 2019 and 2020, so he's looking to go for a three-peat here.
Yeah, Abushi, he's been in the finals also three years in a row. He lost the finals in 2018 to Tanahashi. So he, Abushi, one of my favorite wrestlers. I'm looking forward to his first match with Great Okan. I think that'll be really interesting. I'm looking forward to the match that we missed out on with him and Shingo, of course. Ibushi against the block opponents, he's 19-11. So that's kind of an interesting piece that I've pulled together for all these guys too. So we're obviously going to get another match with him and Naito, which is awesome. Him and Ishi is a good matchup. Him and Zack Saber Jr. There's not a matchup on Kota Ibushi's G1 that I'm not at least a little bit excited to see what happens.
Yeah, Ibushi's lined up to have another great G1. He's a lot of great dance partners here. The match that I'm most looking forward to is that Shingo Takagi match that we didn't get at Wrestle Grand Slam. And I think there's going to be a lot of cool stories that's going to come out of Ibushi's run during this G1. It's kind of a redemption arc. He's coming back from pneumonia. And he lost to Tanahashi. He's kind of on this downward swing right now. and I feel like it's going to be like an upward climb for him, and I do think he's going to finish towards the top of the block. However, I just have a hard time seeing him win the tournament this year, or even win this block, just because he's won it 2 years in a row. Like you mentioned, he's been in 3 finals, so I don't know, maybe he could get to a finals, but I think his chances are slim.
Yeah, and he's been in the last 4 tournaments, and he's averaged 12.5 points. So he's gone 14, 14, 12, and 10. You got to figure he's going to get to double digits, but I think the story might be, is he healthy? Is he warmed up for this tournament? Because he's only had the 1 match since the beginning of July, and we're coming into the middle of September here. So that's, I think, the thing to look out for. I think I would be shocked to see Abushi make it to another final, but listen, I mean, if you're ever going to heat up, it's the G1, and obviously he's got that figured out.
Right. If you just really want to, stamp that New Japan on him, give him a third, G1 win, or third final or fourth final, it's like you really just kind of drive home and really elevate him as a top star in the promotion. So next up, let's look at the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii, 9th entry, 9th consecutive, and he is 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man tag team champions.
Yeah, so Ishi, a G1 staple. Most of what you get from Ishi is just great matches. You're going to want to watch the Ishi matches on most of these nights because they could be the match of the night. They could be the match of the tournament, without a doubt. Ishii's only had, of his 8 previous G1s, he's only had 3 times into double digits. So he usually lives at that 8 mark, right? Mm-hmm. He's at 8 the past 2 tournaments. So he's typically been coming in under 500. So 8 is 4 and 5 for the 9 matches. So it won't surprise me to see him land around there again, but also he could teeter up to 10 just based on some of the matchups that he has in this block. You'd think he's pretty much a lock to win, but he's also one of those guys that can lose and not really lose momentum. So I think that's what makes the Ishii matches interesting, is because he's always kind of a 50-50 shot to win or lose.
Yeah, looking at this block, I mean, pretty much everybody in this block could beat him, and he can beat anybody in this block. So yeah, like you mentioned, that makes Ishii matches very exciting. Last several years, Ishii has been the MVP of his block and of the whole tournament. And with the guys that he has to work with here, Abushi, Shingo, Naito, Saber, Kenta, I think once again he's probably going to be a lock to be the MVP of this block. I think a big match for him is opening night, where he faces off against Shingo Takagi. These guys have had wars in the past, and, night 1 is known for upset, so he could get a big upset over the world champion. We could see a fall title defense of Shingo versus Ishii, or, there's 3 domes. Who knows? Maybe Ishii works his way into a dome main event. There's 3 of them, and maybe he can slip on in there, but yeah, expecting another great tournament for Ishii. As I'm looking at my predictions, I kind of have him at that 8 point range again this year. But yeah, it should be some good stuff. I'm also looking forward to him and Great Okan. I feel like that could be a match that really help Great Okan break out.
And I think one of the underrated kind of long-term rivalries that doesn't get a lot of attention is Ishii versus Naito. And that'll be on October 9th on night 13 from Edion Arena in Osaka. That's the main event that night, and that's the one I've got earmarked for the Ishii Classic. So I think that's where we're going to see Ishii shine, and Naito for that matter too. I mean, Naito obviously one of the best in the world too, but I think that's putting them in a main event in Osaka. Osaka crowds have been really, really good for these G1 shows. At least last year, Osaka was one of those places that felt hot, felt good. And I think that hopefully we see that again here, since they've got 3 nights in Osaka throughout the tournament. But that'll be the main event I'm looking forward to the most.
Nice. Yeah, Ishii is going to have a great tournament, but also very low chances of him winning this block and winning this whole tournament. So looking at the next participant, Toru Yano, 16th entry, 15th consecutive. He is the current KOPW 2021 trophy holder.
Yeah, Yano's a guy who, a lot of people call him a night off, or he's someone that you can be creative with. He's not a threat to win the block or the tournament. He kind of alternates between 6 points and 8 points. I think his all-time high was 10, and that was in 2016. So, but he's, full of fun, full of joy. They're obviously going to set up something for KOPW probably, but he's another one of those guys that can get a banana peel win over anybody on any night. And he's one of those guys that balances out the block a little bit and makes things interesting. So you don't have some of the top guys just running away. So I wouldn't say that I'm particularly looking forward to anything specifically with Yano, but I think his interactions with Kenta might be really fun. Zack Saber Jr. is always a good time with Yano. They had a really kind of a fun run earlier, and someone like Naito, even someone who can play along, I guess, is obviously what I'm kind of looking for.
Yeah, the Saber Yano stuff was a lot of fun, especially when Yano was doing the whole shooter Yano, trying to play it straight. There's some good wrestling there. I think an interesting match to look out for will be the Great Okan match on September 23rd, just because of their history in the New Japan Cup, where Yano tied Okan's hair to the barricade and was able to defeat Okan in that New Japan Cup, eliminate him after that big Naito win he had. So Okan could be looking to get some revenge on Yano, and Yano could potentially upset Great Okan once again.
Yeah, Okan and Tangaloa are the only wrestlers who are fighting Yano who have never beaten Yano.
So definitely going to be one to look out for there. So next up, we look at the Dragon, Shingo Takagi, third entry, third consecutive. He is the current reigning IWGP World Heavyweight Champion.
Yeah, so the champion is in the G1 because the champion can win the G1. And in theory, if the champion ever wins the G1, they get to then choose their opponent for Wrestle Kingdom. So we haven't seen that in a long time, and we certainly haven't seen that since the Wrestle Kingdom stipulation was added. So Shingo has not traditionally been great in the G1. He's only been in 2. This is his third. He's scored 8 points in his previous 2, so he's gone 4 and 5. Now, I don't think that's what Shingo's going to do this year because he's the champ, right? So if you lose 5 matches, in theory, that sets up 5 title challenges between now and Wrestle Kingdom. And not that they always deliver on every single one of those, but you'd figure they're going to deliver on a few. And there's just not that much time this year with the G1 being in the fall. So I think you're going to see Shingo lose 2, maybe 3 super key matches. I think he's going to land himself with 10, maybe 12 points. There's a chance he wins the block, right? I don't think that's outrageous. Send him to the block finals and maybe win or lose. I don't know. Things are wacky right now. So could he be the winner and then set up whatever they were going to do for Wrestle Kingdom? I'm sure there's a route to where they want to go. So, but I don't think you're going to see Shingo end with 8 points, especially not this year, especially after the company's put a lot behind him, and he's got a lot of momentum. He's doing great. He's an incredible singles wrestler. So, match I'm most looking forward to with Shingo is probably a great match against Tetsuya Naito. They had a great G1 match in 2019, and they have not met since. And I am looking forward to seeing that happen again.
Yeah, I rewatched the Shingo Naito match yesterday. It's the free match of the week. So if you guys want to check it out, if you're not a NJPW World subscriber, you can check it out for free on NJPW World and YouTube. Such a great matchup there. That was in Shingo's first G1. I think that's going to be a big rematch here, and it's in Kobe. Shingo's had a lot of great matches in Kobe during his time with Dragon Gate. And there's so much history between him and Naito, and then plus the ramifications if Naito were to score another victory, you would think would get some kind of rematch for the title down the line as well. And so it's kind of curious to see how that would play out. But like you mentioned, I think Shingo, this is probably going to be his highest scoring G1. I really only see him losing to the top guys. So I can see him losing to Abushi, to Naito, and, maybe Kenta. I mean, maybe Yano could pull the upset. But outside of that, I think Shingo is going to end, 12, 14 points here.
So with the kind of the stipulation that usually the people who beat the champion during the G1 get a shot, are those the people that you think beat Shingo this year? You think he loses to Naito? You think he loses to Ibushi? And that's what sets up kind of what happens going forward?
Yeah, my bracket, I have him losing to Abushi and Naito. I also have day one upset of him losing to Ishi. Because I think those are three big defenses, and an Ishi defense, that's somebody he could easily beat in a defense. And then, you got 3 dome shows coming up. I'm not quite sure. Also, the G1 winner is going to get one of those, and I'm assuming they're going to do something with Ospreay, but you could potentially work in, like, if Naito beats him, somehow on the third night, if Shingo leaves the first 2 nights as champion, Naito could walk out and be like, I beat you in the G1. It's going to be me and you 3 days later, January 8th.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's one big show on the books, as far as I can tell, with Power Struggle in November, that we know we're going to get some sort of defense, right? So they're going to set that up. Maybe the World Tag League Best of Super Juniors final night. Maybe you do something big that night. And from there, it's probably road to Tokyo Dome. So, yeah. And you're probably not doing a defense on road to Tokyo Dome. So there's just, I guess you've got the US show too, Battle in the Valley. I've heard there might be a dragon flying over the Pacific for that, but that would be cool to see a defense there. But I don't know who that would be. That's in this block. So that's the thing that's really challenging about the G1 being when it is right now, these past 2 years, is that, like, you can't load up challengers and know that you've got at least 2 defenses. You've got probably 1 defense. I think, did Naito defend more than once last year between the G1 and the Dome?
I don't think so.
I think it was just the Evil defense, right?
Right, yeah, at Power Struggle.
Yeah. So tough to sneak another one in. The thing about it is, if, like, he loses to Yano, Yano doesn't always cash in those defenses, right? Yeah. So, like I said, Yano's the great balancer. So maybe that's something to work with as you look at your brackets.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, typically the champion is usually not a favorite to win a block or win the whole tournament. But like you mentioned, such a wacky year, and especially with the whole Real World Champion storyline going on. I mean, you could have Shingo win and be like, hey, I won the G1. I am the Real World Champion. Like, what are you doing over there, Ospreay? And that could build fuel into the unification match.
That would be really fun. I actually think if you're ever going to do it, this is the time to do it, when you've got this kind of angle already set for kind of your end game, right? Now, the problem is it's not a single dome end game, right? You've got to put together 2 and maybe 3 shows. So that makes things, you got to have probably more than just the 2 guys involved.
Right. Let's move on to the next guy here, the leader of Los Ingobernables de Japón, Tetsuya Naito, with his 12th entry, 12th consecutive. He won the G1 in 2013 and 2017.
Yeah, Naito typically has, he performs really well in the G1. It's when he shows up the best. His past, all the way back to 2013, he's scored at least double-digit points. So, and he's been in every tournament. So that's pretty good. He's over 500 every single year, all the way back to 2013. So he's going to be in the mix. He's the 2013 winner. He's the 2017 winner. And if you do the math, 2021 would be the next one that shows up in the pattern. So maybe that's a thing. Naito winning could be an interesting way to heat up Naito and get him back into the singles mix. It also would set up that probably sets up Naito and Shingo for the title, maybe for the leadership of LIJ, whatever it may be, right? Even though I think leader for LIJ is kind of a loose, it's a loose situation there. So Shingo's on top right now, so he's kind of the boss. So, but I think that could be an interesting route to go too. I would love to see Naito win and then just go after Shingo and be a part of whatever the mix is at Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, Naito is one of my favorites to win the A block. I just think it just kind of makes the most sense to get him through there. And Once again, a lot of great matches here for him. One I'm really looking forward to is the Kota Abushi match. I think there's a lot of story there with Abushi beating Naito twice in 2 big title matches, beat him at the Tokyo Dome and Osaka-jo Hall. And again, Abushi's trying to redeem himself as well for the year that he's been having. So I think it's some big stakes on the line for both of these guys facing off on October 13th.
Yeah, Naito Ibushi is my favorite generational rivalry. Ibushi has kind of dominated it though. He's 7-3 against Naito in their 10 matches. So it's probably time Naito gets another win there. So if I'm filling out a pick'em, I'm probably picking against my favorite wrestler there on that one. So, but yeah, that'll be a great match. I mean, Naito Ishi, I already talked about that. That'll be awesome too. Naito Shingo, Naito Kenta has always, it was surprisingly good when they did the title match right after Wrestle Kingdom a couple years ago. So that'll be good too. I think Naito's got a lot coming up.
Yeah, I think another interesting matchup would be the Great Okan match on the final night, just from the rivalry that they had this year, with Okan getting the upset in New Japan Cup and then Naito getting the win back. And so it's kind of a big match. It's a final night. I'm assuming that Naito will be going in as one of the potential winners, and so Great Okan could get the win back and upset him and ruin his G1 win, or Naito can kind of put the nail in the coffin in that rivalry and use Great Okan to get to the finals of the tournament. So next guy, Zack Saber Jr., 5th entry, 5th consecutive. He is one half of the IWGP Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, Zack Saber Jr. always has good tournament. Never super in the mix by the end of it. He's his first 4 G1s. He's finished with 10 points, 12 points, 8 points, and 10 points. So good, but not great. As one of the tag champs, I don't think that he's going to be in the mix to be a singles guy, to get into the Wrestle Kingdom, situation here. So, but he puts on really interesting matches. I think the most interesting matchup that he has this year is probably, I don't know, Ibushi, because I feel like we haven't seen that in a little bit. And that was a fun rivalry there for a little bit. They really kind of hammered that one home for a little while there, but I think that's probably the match of his I'm looking forward to the most.
Yeah, I love the Saber Ibushi matches. This is a great mix of striking and chain wrestling and submission wrestling. Also, I love Ishi and Saber together. They're always a great pair. Saber and Kenta had a really good match last year in the G1. I think that will be good. I think the thing for Saber is to look out for guys that beat him to set up potential tag team title matches. So he's going in as, a tag team champion. We've seen LIJ feuding with them. So, Naito beating him, that could lead to another Naito Sonata challenge. Great Okan beats him, that could lead to a Okan Cobb challenge. If Tangaloa beats him, that could lead to a GOD challenge. So I think for him, there's a lot of tag team challenges that will come out of this tournament. But he'll have another fun tournament. Saber is one of my favorite guys, and I would love to see him get a little bit more and go further in these tournaments, but he's just kind of in that middle ground for right now.
I find it a little hard to believe, but I think his matchup with Yujiro Takahashi will be a first time ever, so maybe that'll be interesting, even though Yujiro's kind of a, whatever he's doing right now. So, and then he hasn't had a singles match with Okan either, so that'll be fun to see.
Yeah. Well,
just because guys wrestle differently when they're in there with Zack Saber Jr. So I'm always curious to see what that first match looks like, especially with a guy like Okan, who I think has some high upside and he's really kind of hitting a stride right now.
Yeah, and sometimes Zack just makes people wrestle his style of match. So yeah, it's always interesting to see them kind of go into that, chain wrestling submission based matchup and how they work with Saber. So next up, Great Okan representing the United Empire. This will be his debut entry into the G1 Climax.
Yeah, so guys debuting in the G1 don't usually come in and win, but you can kind of see where they're going to end up in the future, right? So a lot of guys they debut at that 4-5 mark because they're a little bit protected. They get a couple of wins and then they kind of lose off. So I think that's what we might see from Great-O-Khan here, because I don't know that he's necessarily been established as a strong singles competitor yet. I think what we're seeing is he's super dominant in tag matches, and a lot of that's driven by Jeff Cobb. And we'll talk about Jeff Cobb when we get to the B block. But I think that Okan's honestly, I think he may be the most vocal of the United Empire, but I think in the ring, he's third on the totem pole with that group.
Yeah, and also they tried to establish him a little bit early in the year with the New Japan Cup win over Naito, but like you mentioned, it's definitely been a strong push in the tag team. So I think look out for this, him and Saber, him and Tangaloa. That could lead to some tag rivalries right there. But I think for him, like I mentioned earlier, the Naito match is going to be a really big deal coming off the rivalry they had earlier in the year, and he has the potential to spoil Naito's G1. And like I mentioned earlier too, I think the match with Ishi is going to be a great match for him to kind of break through. Him and Shingo could be another good, hard-hitting matchup. And yeah, I think he's going to kind of slide in with 8 points, have a good debut tournament.
6 of Great-O-Khan's 9 tournament matches will be first-time matchups. So definitely someone I'm going to be keeping an eye on.
Nice. So next up, we have Kenta, third entry, third consecutive.
Yeah, Kenta was really exciting when he came in for G129. He has been fine in the tournaments. He did 8 points his first tournament and then 10 points last year. Surprisingly, when I don't remember him getting 10 points last year, but I'm sure it happened kind of under the radar. So Kenta is one of those guys that you love to see him get in the mix, and he limits his cheating and things of the sort. So he does actually end up having like some good matches, but I think he'll be he's one of those guys that's in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, and I think Kenta's a guy that's kind of had a sneaky good year this year. He had the whole feud with the U.S. title with Jon Moxley on Strong, and he's been challenging for the Never Six-Man titles, and then he almost beat Tanahashi in Nagoya. So he's kind of been in the mix in a lot of big matches this year, and I really loved his first G1 in 2019 and his big debut. I thought he had a really good tournament. I thought a lot of analysts and reviewers and critics were pretty hard on that first year, and also I think a lot of people are watching him, trying to look for the Noah Kenta, look for the Ring of Honor Kenta, and obviously those days are gone, but he's still a great worker and still puts out some great matches. I think a big match to look out for is going to be that Kota Abushi match on the 18th. I think those guys have really good chemistry, and that has the potential to be a very just hard-hitting matchup. It's also that's who Kenta beat in his first G1 match in 2019 too. So a little G1 history there as well.
That was in Dallas, right?
Yep. Then second to last here in A block, one half of the Gorillas of Destiny, Tangaloa, making his debut entry into the G1 Climax.
So Tangaloa, 8 of his 9 matches are first-time matchups because he hardly ever wrestles singles matches.
Yeah.
He has faced Zack Sabre Jr. once. I can't recall exactly when that is. I'm sure I'll pull it up when I do the preview for it. But he's had 1 match against this entire group, which is kind of incredible that he's here. But also, Tangaloa is sneaky good, I think.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people see Tangaloa, Tama Tonga, added as kind of tag team filler guys that they needed a body and they could get to Japan. But I'm low-key excited for whatever Tangaloa's tournament looks like. And I really hope that he shows up and is motivated, ready to go. I hope he pulls off a couple of upset wins. And I hope that, I hope it's a meaningful moment in his career, because I think that he's a guy who has gotten kind of lost in the shuffle. And I think while Tama Tonga may be on the backside of his career, right? And Tama Tonga was in a couple of G1s before, and people, even your listeners, may not even realize that he was a key player in some of those G1s that he was in earlier, as Bullet Club was rising. I think Tangaloa is on the upswing now, so I think that he's shown a lot, and I think that him having the opportunity to have 9 singles matches at a high level, I think we're going to see what he is, and I hope that it's great, honestly.
Yeah, I've been saying all year that Tangaloa is kind of low-key raw. He's just been having some really good performances, and he just does stuff that you wouldn't expect him to do, like busting out, Inziguris and Kamaguris and doing, crippler crossface, and he's a lot of really cool moves, and he's kind of incorporated that kind of fighting spirit style. We've seen him kind of no-selling moves and popping up and getting fired up. And he's a big, hard-hitting guy, and I think this is the perfect block for him to be in. You put him up there against Ishi, you put him up against Shingo, his Bullet Club stablemate Kenta. I think he's going to have a lot of hard-hitting matches. I think he's going to really impress some people in this tournament. He has the opportunity here. A good G1 here could really just change the trajectory of his career in New Japan. So moving on to the last guy here, the Tokyo Pimp, Yujiro Takahashi. He's coming in with his 8th entry, 2nd consecutive.
So I'm most excited to see Yujiro versus Tetsuya Naito because they haven't done that since 2016, I think. And Yujiro, when they were young lions, I guess, or even just early in their careers, Yujiro dominated that series. So overall, Yujiro is 18-3 in singles matches against Tetsuya Naito, which sounds insane.
Yeah, that sounds crazy.
Right. But a lot of that is when Yujiro wasn't even known as Yujiro Takahashi, he was known as Yujiro. But either way, that doesn't change the fact that happened. So that's the match I'm looking out for the most because they haven't done it in so long, and there is a huge backstory between those guys.
Yeah, I think another match to look out for Yujiro is that final match against Shingo Takagi on October 18th. Last year, Yujiro got 2 points in the tournament. I really don't see him getting a lot more this year, but, that could be the one upset. Last year, he upset Jeff Cobb. And with Shingo, probably going into the final night as one of the leading candidates to win the block, Yujiro Takahashi could be a guy that upsets him, spoils him, especially with the House of Torture on the loom. You could have Evil, Dick Togo Show making their presence known on that final night and helping Yujiro to spoil Shingo and get him out of the tournament.
Yeah, and Yujiro could be a guy who beats Shingo but doesn't take the title shot. Yeah. Just because he's not a guy that's typically seen at that level. So that wouldn't surprise me either for that to be one of the ways to get Shingo out of the mix.
Yeah, and we had a question here from Reddit user Hawaiian Punch BV. On a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you in seeing Yujiro in the G1 again? What would it take for it to be a 10? For me, it would take Peter and a returning Mao together with Yujiro on every show. And him wrestling Naito is cool.
Yes, I agree. Him wrestling Naito is cool. So we have that going for us. On a scale of 1 to 10, I don't know, like a 4. I don't think Yujiro was terrible in last year's G1. And every G1's got guys like Yujiro in it. You usually just don't see them 2 years in a row, to be perfectly honest. So whether it's an older guy or a super young guy, every G1 block has that guy that you don't think is going to win many matches. So Yujiro is that guy.
Yeah, and somebody has to do the JOB. So Yujiro is a guy that can eat plenty of pinfalls and help people get points. I would say probably like a 3 on a scale of my excitement, especially just considering the possibility of House of Torture interference. But like you mentioned, he was fine last year, had some decent matches. I don't think he had anything that was like below 3 stars last year. Very serviceable. So it should be fine, and it'll be definitely a plus if we do get Tokyo Latina Peter out there along with him.
Even if just for the Tokyo shows.
Yeah. So any final thoughts on the A block?
I think the A block is pretty good. I think there's a ton to work with in the A block, and I think that like I said, like I'm probably more excited than the average for Tangaloa. I have faith that Kenta is going to show up and just wrestle. So like Yujiro is the only kind of Yujiro and Yano, I guess, but Yano in the G1 people, it's fun. Yano makes things interesting. And honestly, the last time we saw Yano, he was like brutal killer Yano. So if he's going to keep doing that, that's even better. I kind of doubt that. But yeah, I mean, it's a good, solid block. These are going to be great matches. I'm really looking forward to all these first time singles matches with Great Okan. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a clear top tier of Naito, Shingo, Ibushi, probably, that I think the winner is going to come out of that mix. But I think you're going to get your spoilers out of Zack Sabre Jr. and Great Okan, Kenta, Tangaloa. So, I mean, there's a lot to work with there. There's a lot of matches that I think can go either way.
Yeah, this is a great lineup here. I think the A block will probably end up having the better overall match, or maybe the most notebook matches. I think it's definitely a breakout time for Great Okan and Tangaloa, like you mentioned. Big opportunities there for them. And then you can't go wrong with having a block with Ibushi, Ishi, Shingo, Naito, Saber, Kenta. So, yeah, I think it'll be a really fun block, and we'll get some bangers out of it.
Plenty of bangers. It's G1 season, baby.
Yeah.
Gym sessions and sweaty summer activities are back, which means more funky smells in your clothes because sweat leaves behind bacteria that causes those hard-to-remove odors. Clorox fabric sanitizer products are ready to zap the stink out of fabrics in your home by getting rid of 99.9% of odor-causing bacteria. Eliminate odors in every load or sanitize fabrics between washes with one of our fabric sanitizer products. Search fabric sanitizer at Clorox.com to learn more. When it counts, trust Clorox. Use as directed.
Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Adidas. Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the resculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
All right, let's go take a look now at the B block. So we'll start with Hiroshi Tanahashi, the current IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. This is his 20th entry, 20th consecutive G1. He's won the tournament in 2007, 2015, and 2018.
He's got, I think, 3 more finals appearances, too. So Tanahashi, he's a guy. So think about Tanahashi. So 2018, he won the tournament, right? 15 points. So I think that's the most points anyone's ever scored in a G1. Since then, 8 and 8, right? 8 points and 8 points in 2019 and 2020. So he's been kind of on the downturn, but now he's the United States champion. And he was previously just recently the never openweight champion. So he, not to say that the United States champion is at all protected in the G1. I don't have the data pulled up just yet about kind of how that champion performs in the G1.
Yeah, I mean, you look back to Juice Robinson. I believe he was a U.S. champ in the G1, and he, 6 losses, right? And they didn't really do any follow up on most of those title challenges.
Yeah, exactly. So that's not to say, but Tanahashi's not Juice Robinson either.
Correct.
Right? So if you beat Tanahashi, it's going to mean something even if he's not a title holder. So that's the interesting wrinkle with Tanahashi, is that he's a champion right now. And are we establishing the United States Championship as something at a higher level than it's been seen before? It's hard to say because it hasn't been in Japan. We haven't seen who could compete for it because it was limited to people who could get to America and fight John, and then fight Jon Moxley, which is also something that needs to be agreed upon with AEW probably, right? So Tanahashi, champion, 20th consecutive G1. I mean, that's so awesome. He is constantly a player to elevate himself, right? You thought he was, no one saw the 2018 run coming, and all of a sudden he won the tournament with one of the best tournaments ever. So, he was a finalist in 2013, 2010, 2004, a winner 3 times, 2 times within the last 6 years. I mean, he's still into it. So I don't know. Do you heat Tanahashi up and give him a block win and send him to the finals? Maybe not with this mix, because I think this block is pretty good, but interesting to see where his tournament goes.
Yeah, man, you never count out the ace. He never gives up. He's never tired. He just always keeps going forward and always, like you mentioned, always looking to better himself. And I do think him being the IWGP US champion is going to be a very interesting thing for him this year. With the Moxley title reign, I feel like they did kind of establish that US heavyweight title as a very important title and a prize that people really want to go after. And so I think with Tanahashi being the US champion now, I think they might try to protect Tanahashi a little bit and not have him eat a bunch of losses. I could see him going back to finishing with 10, 12 points in this year's tournament. And I do think, similar to the A block, there's definitely a kind of a top tier here in this tournament. You look at your Tanahashis, your Okadas, your Sonatas. I feel like those are like the really like top cream of top guys that have been in title matches, guys that have been in finals. And so I think Tanahashi is going to have a really good tournament this year. And he has some good dance partners here. And I think a match everybody's probably looking forward to is opening night, September 19th. He's facing off Kazuchika Okada, one of his greatest rivals. We saw them wrestle live in Dallas for the G1 29. Great match, great way to kick off the tournament. And I believe it's only the second time that they've opened a G1 tournament, with 2019 being the first time.
I think that's true. Yeah. You got to figure Tanahashi's trying to get back to even with Okada. There are Tanahashi's 5-6-3 against Okada right now. So if he could get that win, it's kind of like getting his win back, right? So
yeah.
Tanahashi has the most G1 matches all time with 151. No surprise there, being in 20 consecutive tournaments now. And he has 2 first-time matchups this year, Jeff Cobb and Chase Owens. I am really looking forward to the Jeff Cobb match, I think, as the first-time matchups go.
Yeah, that should be really good. Jeff Cobb's been on a roll this year, and I think matching with Tanahashi would be a great matchup. And, back to that Okada match, I think it's very interesting that both guys are kind of in opposite directions right now. Usually it's Okada that's on the rise, and Tanahashi just kind of, trying to hold on to what he has left. But I feel like things are flip-flop here. Tanahashi's on the rise, like you mentioned, never openweight champ. He's the U.S. champion now. Okada's been having a hard time. He lost to Shingo, lost to Jeff Cobb recently at Wrestle Grand Slam in the MetLife Dome. So Okada's kind of coming in and downswing here. And so it could be an upset. I mean, it's not really an upset, but kind of is. But yeah, Tanahashi could beat Okada day one.
Yeah, and Okada, here's the thing about Okada. He is always in the mix. I mean, I'm looking back to 2014. He's had more than 11 points every single year. And that's a hell of a run. But he hasn't won the tournament since 2014. So a lot of that time he's been the champion, of course, a couple of those tournaments. But I mean, that's a long run without winning the biggest tournament as one of the top guys, right? So right. I mean, he's the 2012 winner, 2014 winner, and then nothing, right? And not even any finals in there, I don't think, since 2014. So maybe this is the year Okada finally heats up during the G1, as opposed to trying to work out if he can make the money clip a thing.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about him, let's look at it. Kazuchika Okada, 10th entry, 10th consecutive, 2012 winner, 2014 winner. Like you mentioned, he's usually champion in these things. Usually doesn't get to a block final because he is a champion, or he's gone crazy and he has balloons and red hair and long pants. So, I feel like we're going to see kind of Okada starting off, maybe eating some losses during the beginning and then making a kind of hot trail towards the end to finish a block, probably 12 points. Okada is one of my heavy favorites to win the B block on my bracket. I do have, Okada Naito as the final, so I have Okada going through the B block here. So I definitely think he's going to be in the mix come that final night.
You think they do Okada Naito again on one night build?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like they really need to kind of hit it out the park with G1 finals this year. I feel like the Abushi Sonata match got a lot of mixed reviews and it wasn't, the best final. I think an Okada Naito match can really, A lot of people don't think the lineup's that strong, but, a strong final like that could, really end the G1 with a bang and get people excited for Dome season.
Yeah, I mean, I put Okada as my favorite to win this block. But I guess I haven't thought about who he's going to face. So, yeah, well, I think the A block's kind of, it's a little more wide open, just in the sense that, like, I don't know. I think Okada is the clear favorite to win the B block. And Okada looks to be healthy, and he looked really good against Jeff Cobb in the MetLife Dome. So I think now's the time to heat up Okada. And, I kind of hope that this is Okada's G1. And I hope that he smacks people with rainmakers instead of money clips, because it's more fun. It's a more fun match when you win with the rainmaker,
especially in a clap crowd environment. The money clips can drag and be a little dreadful. So yeah, definitely hope to see some big rainmakers here. I think a match to look out for is going to be the Sonata match, October 14th at Corkin. Those guys had a series of matches. I believe that was in 2019 as Sonata was, making his campaign to try to be IWGP champion. I believe he defeated Okada in the 2019 G1. Got a big win there to get a fall title defense. So these guys have a lot of history. I personally haven't always been the biggest fans of their matches. I think a lot of people overrated them, in my opinion. But overall, still great matches, and they can kind of continue the story of Sonata trying to beat Okada. So definitely think story-wise it's going to be a big match to look out for. That
Okada-Sonata G1 match that Sonata won was like so fun because it went down to the wire.
Yeah.
And it really felt like it was going to be a draw, and then Sonata pulled it out. One of the matches I'm looking forward to is Okada and Goto, because they don't go back to that very frequently. Those guys don't have a lot of reason or opportunity to have singles matches against each other. So I'm looking forward to that one. That's on October 1st on night 8.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about a lot of Bullet Club members. We have a lot of Chaos members in this block. You have Okada, you have Goto, you have Yoshihashi. So a big block here that has a lot of Chaos members as well. So yeah, it'd be very interesting to see all these Chaos guys square off with each other, especially with kind of the storyline going with, Okada not being the best leader of Chaos. Commentary mentioned it a little bit, and there's kind of been some rumbling in, the New Japan circles online on whether this could be a storyline going forward of Okada not being a great Chaos leader, of all the people turning and just kind of the chaos that Chaos is in.
I mean, how do you let Show go?
Yeah.
I mean, generational talent.
Well, let's look at the next guy, which is also a Chaos member, Hiroki Goto. 14th entry, 14th consecutive. He was the 2008 winner. He is 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man tag team champions.
Low key, Jeremy, what does the G in G1 stand for?
Stands for Goto.
That's right. Goto G1s are great, right? Goto is awesome. I don't ever want to see him in a final again. He snuck his way into the final in 2016, right?
Yeah.
Which was cool, I guess, for the circumstances, right? And the final was great. Like, don't get me wrong, it was a great match. But I love Goto G1s. Goto's underrated, I think, criminally underrated as a singles wrestler. One of the standards for New Japan. Definitely a guy to keep your eye out for. He's gonna have one match that you're like, damn, that was good.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens every year where you're like, oh yeah, Hiroki Goto rocks. And I don't know exactly what match that's gonna be this year. It could be Sonata.
I think it's going to be the Jeff Cobb match. Those guys have a history over the never openweight title, and Goto was kind of one of those first hurdles for Jeff Cobb to really kind of beat and establish himself in New Japan. And those guys had some really fun, hard-hitting matches there. I feel like Jeff Cobb's on a whole nother level compared to the last time they squared off for the never title. So I think that could be the banger that Goto has this year.
Yes. New Jeff Cobb versus the old guard of Goto. I think that'll be really, really fun. So again, I'm excited to see Goto Okada again. But yeah, I mean, he's not one of those guys. You don't skip his matches.
Right.
That's all I can kind of say about Goto. It's like, I don't know. Every now and then He puts out a dud, but he's just such a good professional wrestler. And yeah, I don't know. He's been great in the never 6-man situation, and he's having a low key, really, really good year. So again, he's one of those guys that typically, he averages pretty high, usually above 500. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him land with 10 points or so.
Yeah, and something also to look out for too is people who beat him could also potentially lead to never 6-man matches. There's a lot of units in here. You could have a Bullet Club team win, set up another Bullet Club title defense. If Cobb beats him, you could get a United Empire 6-man title defense. So same thing with Ishi and Yoshihashi, as those guys are in the block. People who beat them could also potentially set up some future never 6-man title matches.
The thing I love about Chaos versus Chaos matches is that they just have a match. It doesn't end up being some goofy thing where they're like, they play around with it or try to like rig it by any means. Like those guys just get in the ring and they fight. So that's the nice thing about it. You can put as many members of Chaos in the same block and you're going to get probably actually better matches because they don't fight each other that often.
Right. A lot of fresh matchups, protected matchups. So yeah, should be very interesting seeing, Goto, Okada, and Goto against the next man. We're going to talk about his partner, Yoshihashi, who's in his 5th entry, 2nd consecutive. He is 1/3 of the never openweight 6-man tag team champions with Hiroki Goto and Tomohiro Ishii.
So last year's G1 is when everyone kind of clued themselves in that Yoshihashi's pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was like, everyone was like, oh my God, Yoshihashi in the G. This is what happened last year. People looked at it and they're like, oh God, Yoshihashi. We're going to watch 9 Yoshihashi matches. And then they were all good. Every single one of them was good. He only won 2 of them, but they were good. And then that snowballed into this never 6-man situation where Yoshihashi is, the king of Korakuen and all that. So, I think the most interesting matches for Yoshihashi are the matches in Korakuen Hall. I mean, like that dude, he seems to show up for those. He is terrible against everyone he's fought again. I mean, he's 3-27 against this block in singles matches. So he's 0-12 against Kazuchika Okada. I mean, like, come on. The only person he hasn't had a singles match with is Jeff Cobb. So and the only people he's defeated is Sonata, Chase Owens, and Evil. So, is he going to be a factor in the end of the block? No, probably not. But he's going to, this guy's going to show up and give you everything he's got.
Yeah, and he definitely has the potential to be a spoiler. He's probably, last year he got 4 points, so he's probably going to be in that range again. But he can be one of those guys that, beats an Okada or Tanahashi to throw them off their block and throw them off the path of getting to the finals. But Yoshihashi, he should have, again, a solid performance. Like you mentioned, people kind of opened their eyes to Yoshihashi last year. And for me, one of my favorite Yoshihashi matches is his 2017 G1 match with Yuji Nagata. I think that is one of Yoshihashi's best matchups. And if you're looking for, a G1 hidden gem, I think that's one of them right there.
That match rocks.
Yeah, I think that's actually like the first ever like singles Yoshihashi match I saw at the time. And I was like, man, this Yoshihashi guy is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's not cool. We know that. He's definitely not cool. But he's way cooler than we thought he was.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a little while there, I was way out on Yoshihashi. I mean, I had to sit through the Yoshihashi Kenta never openweight
in New York.
In New York. Like, I was there. And that was a drag. That was definitely a drag. But since then, great improvement from Yoshihashi.
Yeah, and I think a match to look out for is going to be that Goto match in Korakuen October 4th. These guys had a match last year in the G1. And like you mentioned, with the Chaos guys, it's all about, athleticism, who's the better man. And I think, with Yoshihashi, he wants to prove himself that he's on his partner's levels. Everybody talks about Goto. People talk about Ishii. I think he wants his name to be respected on the same level as those guys. And so I think he's probably going to go really hard in that match to show that he's on the same level as Goto.
And I love that match is in Korakuen because Korakuen Hall has been so good to them for these never 6-man defenses. So I think that's there's something to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think they're going to have the time and the opportunity to really put on a great match.
Yeah. So up next, the Cold Skull Sonata with his 6th entry, 6 consecutive.
Now, Sonata was a finalist last year, and I think a lot of people have forgotten that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for real, like,
Yeah.
people have forgotten that. Sonata hasn't done a ton since then. He's just kind of a guy right now. He's kind of lost without getting himself in the tag team mix and without feuding with Okada. He doesn't have a direction, especially when you lose at the top level and you don't immediately kind of bounce down to a different singles title. He feels like a kind of directionless wrestler right now. So curious to see if Sonata finds himself this year. He 12 points last year. He won the block. He went to the final. The final with Abushi was good. His tournament last year was underwhelming though, and he kind of like snuck in as the winner. You know, I mean, Evil and Okada both also had 12 points, but he had beaten them, so he goes on to the finals. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect here, and to be perfectly honest, I don't know what I'm excited for. Him and Tanahashi sounds good, something that we don't see very frequently. So I'll go with that as my Sonata match.
Yeah, so the Tanahashi Sonata match probably has the potential to be Sonata's best match of the tournament. Some history there. Sonata did beat Tanahashi in his debut tournament in 2016. Obviously, both guys have a big Keiji Muto influence on their wrestling styles and careers. And, you mentioned Sonata is kind of, rudderless right now. Kind of, he was in the tag title mix, but not really doing a lot. But, a win over Tanahashi that could put Sonata, heat him up, and give him a potential U.S. title shot.
Yeah, and maybe that's the right place for Sonata.
Yeah.
Maybe not the G1 finals, and maybe not the Wrestle Kingdom main event. Maybe the U.S. Championship is the right spot for him. I don't know.
Right, and LIJ is super popular in the U.S., so if he does come over, I think he would get a good reaction and could be a good person to hold the red strap. So next up, let's look at Taichi with his 3rd entry, 3rd consecutive. Taichi, one half of the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, partnered up with Zack Saber Jr. They are the Dangerous Techers.
Yeah, I'm not a big Taichi guy. I think the most interesting match for Taichi is the match against Okada, because he hasn't defeated Okada yet, and they kind of intermingle pretty frequently, but they, when they try to heat that up, they heat it up quick. So I think that's the most interesting match for me with Taichi, and he's only got 2 first-time matches. Apparently, he's never wrestled Evil, and he's never wrestled Chase Owens. I mean, Chase Owens has 8 first-time matchups, so he's going to appear on all these lists. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say about Taichi. I've loved him with Dangerous Techers, but I don't see a lot of potential, I guess, when he steps into the singles world.
Oh man, I see a bunch of potential with Taichi, man.
I'm just not a Taichi guy, and I know I'm going to hear about it, and someone's going to tweet me, and I'm going to hear it from Joel and Damon or whatever.
I don't know, man. The Abushi match last year were just kicking each other. I feel like he's really turned it up. He had a lot of hard hitting, never style matchups. I think him and Cobb could be a hard hitting matchup. Him and Goto, they usually have really good matches against each other. And, I think, Tanahashi and Okada matches could be a chance for Taichi to break out as well. I love the dangerous, backdrop suplex, the Kawada kicks. There's a lot of great stuff with Taichi, and I feel like since he's kind of been more of a tweener lately, it's kind of babyface, I feel like, obviously there's less cheating, and his matches have been really entertaining. From a storyline perspective, I think the Tama Tonga match is going to be one to look out for, just because they are the tag champs. GOD is going to be looking to get back in the tag title mix. And then, of course, other guys that have partners could be potential also. Goto and Yoshihashi recently challenged. If they beat Taichi, they can get another tag title shot. Dangerous Techers. Cobb, if he beats Taichi, you get the Cobb-Okan versus Dangerous Techers matchup. So a lot of potential tag team title matches could come out of this, similar to Saber in the A block.
Do you think they'll do a G1 ladder match with Tama Tonga and Taichi?
I hope not. I just hope they pretend that whole thing never happened.
That's hard to forget. Maybe that's why I don't feel great about Taichi.
Hey, man.
Maybe that's it. That's got to be it, because that was terrible.
Yes.
Maybe not terrible, but it wasn't good.
It was pretty bad.
That shouldn't have happened. They didn't need to do that. So, what would you put on? Here's just a side question. What would you put up at the top of the ladder for a G1 ladder match? Like, what is it? What represents the G1 that can be at the top of a ladder?
So on top of the ladder, if whoever grabs, let's say, some kind of contract, and the loser,
boring.
But the winner signs a contract and they can stay team with their partner forever, but the loser can no longer team with their partner.
Oh, okay.
So if Taichi loses, no more Dangerous Tekkers. If Tama loses, no more GOD.
I would root for Taichi. That's what would get me for Taichi. I think they'd put like a G1 referee shirt up there. Like that's what that's what would be like in the clear bag, because isn't that how they did the fingers? Yeah.
Or they could do like the rights to a night with Miho Abe.
Or you know what they could do is, if you lose the ladder match in the G1, you deduct 2 points. So we can like, this is the kind of stuff that might happen if someone gets knocked out with COVID. They're gonna start like reducing points somehow. It could get really interesting. So I don't hope for that. I really hope I'm kidding. But see, if you really want to get to the same ending with one person winning, you might have to take some points away from somebody that's already got them.
Yeah. Maybe they could do some kind of like KOPW,
Yes.
handcuff, last man standing, I quit match. Who knows?
Or they could be like Dragon Gate and just do like a battle royal for the block win.
Yeah.
Everyone ends up tied and everything's a draw or a double count out. So that you can't break the tie. So you have to have a over the top rope elimination battle royal.
Let's look at the next guy here. Jeff Cobb, representing United Empire in his third entry in the G1. I believe it's also a third consecutive in the G1.
Jeff Cobb, it's gonna be great. Probably the tournament I'm most excited for is Jeff Cobb's tournament, because I think he's really stepped it up lately, and he is he's primed for a push here, I think. So I think that we're going to see a different Jeff Cobb. We've seen some Jeff Cobb singles stuff, obviously, this year. Most recently the match with Okada, which I thought was just incredible. But he is 100% ready to go. He's got a first-time match with Tanahashi, which I think is something I'm super excited to see. He's got, another match with Okada on the last night, which I think will make his tournament really interesting. I think you got to figure that Cobb's in the mix in the last night, especially when you look at kind of how the scheduling played out. So he's a dark horse to win a block, I think. I think that is an underrated thing about the G1, and I know I brought it up on last year's preview show, is anyone can win a block, right? Like anyone can win a block, and that it's not going to mean anything more for the long-term booking piece, right? If you win the block, you look at Sonata last year. He won the block. What's he doing now? What was he doing at Wrestle Kingdom, right? It's definitely, it can mean something. It can elevate you further. It can set you up for the next year or whatever it may be. But anyone can win a block if that's someone that they think can mean something in the final. And that doesn't necessarily mean like work rate, 5-star, whatever it may be, 6-star. I think, Jeff Cobb is one of those guys. He's been dominant this year. And I think you're going to see Cobb and Okan like dominate World Tag League next.
Yeah. But
maybe Cobb's the killer. I mean, he's that classic American killer that I think New Japan's been kind of missing for a little while, right? I mean, they tried to do it with Elgin, and I don't think it really panned out, right? And I think, but Cobb as the bad guy, teamed up with Will Ospreay, totally different style, but like he's a player in the game, I think, for them. And I think they really like him. I think they appreciate that he's there. And I think that he's primed to have a really good G1 here, especially knowing that his last night is against Okada, who's got to be the odds-on favorite to win the block.
Yeah, I think he can be in some very interesting, final scenarios. You could do, a Cobb and Shingo final, a Cobb Naito final. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff that you could do. Cobb and Abushi, they had their history. There's a lot of cool stuff that you could do with Cobb in the finals. And yeah, I think that he's going to have a great tournament. He's in a block. This block is almost kind of set up for him to dominate. He can easily beat guys like Yoshihashi. I can see him beating Goto, Sonata, Taichi, Tama Tonga, Chase Owens. Like, I feel like he's gonna run through this block and be one of the people that's alive going into the final night of action. From a storyline perspective, I think the Evil match will be a match that's important for his trajectory, just because of what happened in New Japan Cup with Evil and Dick Togo costing him in New Japan Cup. So he could be looking to get some revenge there. And, again, we'll talk about him next. I think Evil's going to be a guy in the mix as well. So there's a potential tiebreaker scenario there if one of those guys get the win, and then they're both going in with equal points into the final night.
Yeah. Evil's probably my least favorite person in this block, but I'm probably not alone in that.
Yeah, well, we got to talk about him.
Here we go.
The leader of the House of Torture, the King of Darkness, Evil, with his 6th entry, 6 consecutive.
So the Evil match that I'm most curious about is with Tama Tonga, because I think that maybe it's not so obvious, but I feel like obviously we're headed towards House of Torture being its own thing and leaving the Bullet Club. Tama Tonga, long-standing leader kind of the Bullet Club, right? He's always one of those guys, at least on the politics side of the Bullet Club, he's super important. So curious to see what that interaction looks like. Otherwise, they're going to be, we know what an Evil match looks like, and we did it the whole last G1. We did it again against Shingo just recently, elevated him up. We know that Evil is a guy that the New Japan sees something in this style, right? So it's kind of something that is just going to exist, and it's hard for me to talk about it diplomatically because it annoys the hell out of me.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to any of Evil's matches this year, especially with this, new House of Torture unit that's been formed. I think we are going to see a lot of cheating, a lot of interference, a lot of Dick Togo. So Evil's probably not going to have any really notebook matches or standout matches, but regardless, he is going to be one of these guys that finishes towards the top of the block. Last year, he finished with 12 points and had a big match with Sonata on the last night last year. And we're having a similar situation here this year. October 20th, the last night of B Block, he'll be facing Sonata once again. Sonata beat him last year to stop Evil from going to the final. So Evil could get some revenge here, get the win back, and could potentially end up in the finals, or potentially spoil Sonata, get some revenge and spoil Sonata from going into a final.
I guess something a little bit promising here is that Evil only has one main event this whole tournament, at least in the first 8 nights. 3 semi-main events, but then 2 matches in the second slot and 2 matches in the first slot. So he's not placed super high on these cards. And I think his only main event is probably against Okada, because Okada seems to be bringing everyone with him to the main event.
Yeah.
Okada's got 6 of his first 8 matches are main events.
Yeah. We had a question here from Reddit user Mitch MM22. We all know what happened last time the Bullet Club had a sub-faction within. So my question is, how long until Evil and Dick Togo are EVPs of Garrote Torture Wrestling?
Wow.
Chris is speechless. Yeah, actually, that would probably be the best thing for Evil and Dick Togo just go start up their own little Puro indie in Japan and just be out of our lives forever?
I'm not responding to that.
Let's look at the next guy here. Tama Tonga with his 4th entry, first in 3 years that he's been in the G1.
Again, I think he's an interesting addition because he hasn't been in a couple of years, and I think that his role now is different than it had been in the past. I think he showed some signs of life on their last run when they were in Japan. They were in Japan for a long time.
Yeah, they were.
This calendar year, and he hasn't been back in a little while now. So, curious what Tama Tonga singles matches really look like now, especially as that side of the Bullet Club seems to teeter a little bit less towards the tomfoolery. I think it's still going to be there, but I don't know like who seconds Tama Tonga, like who's coming out to the ring with Tama Tonga. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, does anyone? Does that mean these matches are just like clean and they try to take the corner pad off or something, like what, or like use a chair randomly? So like that's what's interesting to me is like you don't have a full roster, you don't have big tag matches of people that are on these shows, and honestly there's no other Bullet Club presence on any of these shows except for Show, I guess, as the House of Torture, but I think that's going to be contained with the Evil matches. So I'm hopeful that these are just matches and Tama Tonga shows up and does a great job.
Yeah, I think, we've seen Tama in the past in G1s, and I think people, at least people I've talked to, have been very disappointed in Tama's performances, but I feel like he does have the opportunity here to kind of step up again, and especially like you mentioned, with him kind of being kind of out of the whole like House of Torture loop and there not really being a lot of people to second him, I think this could lead to potential of Tama having a more straight G1 and having some, better matchups. As far as a match to look out to, I mean, I think the Okada match could be interesting, especially just from a storyline standpoint with him and Carl Anderson. Also, we saw GOD show up at Resurgence and kind of beefing with Gallows and Anderson. And also, Anderson's biggest claim to fame is, getting to the G1 finals with Okada in 2012, but he couldn't beat him. So it could add fuel to the fire if Tama Tonga could beat Okada and be one of those upsets and beats Okada, and that's something he can hold over Carl Anderson's head.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting wrinkle there. Carl Anderson, especially, I mean, even since he's been on AEW, he's putting like 2012 G1 finalist or whatever. Yeah. Like he's just like riding that for the rest of his career, which like honestly, I probably would too.
Oh yeah.
So good on him. Honestly, and that match is great. If you haven't watched that in a while, go check out the G1 final from 2012. Yeah, I mean, so curious to see how these guys get back in the mix. I so badly hope that it's not just, Tama Tonga beats Taichi and sets up a tag title match. Like that seems like such a snoozer, but it may be the only option.
Yeah. Yeah, should be a fine tournament here for Tama Tonga. Let's look at the last B block guy, the crown jewel, Chase Owens, making his debut entry into the G1 Climax.
I'm happy for Chase. I am. Listen.
Hey, Keeping His Strong Style has been one of the biggest Chase Owens supporters when it comes to his in-ring work.
Yeah, he's fine. Like, what's wrong with Chase Owens? He's a wrestler. He wrestles matches. He honestly, like, dude works hard. I remember in 2019, like, he had the most pinfall victories in New Japan, and I'll never forget that because he wouldn't let me forget that. He's, I'm surprised he didn't put that on his shirt. Also the most pinfall losses, but like dude was just always in the ring. He had so many matches and he was a part of the finish. And I know that he's really excited for this opportunity. I don't think where does he get a point? I mean, I know that's a question that's coming up here. I don't know. Who knows? Who cares? I think he's gonna show up and wrestle matches though. And again, like with someone in Bullet Club, that's kind of all you can ask for. It's like Yujiro last year, right? All you wanted was them to just go out and have like a 10-minute match every night and not ruin the G1 with eye roll, worthy stuff. And I don't think that's what we're gonna see from Chase Owens.
Yeah, again, similar to Tama, he's not on the House of Torture side of things, or at least not yet, and so that opens the door for him to have more straight matches. And I think, you have him in there with Goto and Yoshihashi and Taichi and Cobb. I think he could have some really good, like mid-card matches on G1 nights. I do think, obviously going up against Tama Tonga is going to be an interesting match just to see if there's any Bullet Club rift there, or we can get the similar, you lay down, no, you lay down. All right, fine, I'll lay down, then I'll try and roll you up kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. And obviously Evil and Chase, if, there's dissension there. So, but yeah, I mean, all we can hope for is that minimal interference and Chase just puts on, his A game and has some really good matches. There's
going to be one that surprises people, I think, and it might be like the match against Yoshihashi or something, where like they both go out and like with a chip on their shoulders and just like kick ass.
Yeah, let's have a banger.
I'm like super hopeful that happens now because I'll splice this out and put it on Twitter. But like, honestly, like that's the one that I've got earmarked is like these guys are going to go out and be like, no, let's go kill it. Yeah. For whatever 10 or 12 minutes even, and they're just gonna have like like a Shibata Ishi 2013 level match or something.
Question here from front of the show, Zach Porter. He says, do you see Chase getting skunked in this tournament? If not, where could you even see him getting a point?
Against Yoshihashi in a banger.
Yeah,
I don't. The zero thing happens so infrequently that I don't think he's gonna end up with. He's not at that level where they're gonna be like, no, you get zero. Like he's gonna sneak a win out. I don't. Maybe more than one, but definitely at least one.
Yeah, I definitely think Yoshihashi is the prime target there for him to get a win over. I mean, depending on how the whole Bullet Club shenanigans stuff goes, I mean, he could beat Tama Tonga. Maybe an upset over Evil somehow. But yeah, besides that, I have a hard time seeing him beating anybody else. So we have another question here from our user Rambone Slam Pigs. I'm putting my marker on an Okada over Naito in the finals. If so, Okada versus Shingo for night 1, Okada versus Ospreay unified night 2. And then what are they doing with the oddball third night a few days later? Would a Naito Shingo, Okada Ospreay mini tournament work better?
Yes. So I've asked around. I'm trying to find out if they're doing New Year's Dash. Because that obviously adds a wrinkle to the mix too, right? So because if they do the two Tokyo Dome shows on the 4th and the 5th, and then if they do Dash on the 6th, you can use Dash to set up the 8th. There's confidence that travel is a lot easier in January. And well, maybe not confidence. Confidence may not be the right word, but there's I think there's some hope that travel is easier in January, so you can have guys that you have relationships with come in and be a part of these 3 big shows and kick off the 50th anniversary year that I think they see their 50th anniversary year and celebrating that as something that might save their business that, feels a little cold right now. So I like the Naito Shingo Okada Ospreay, mini tournament situation. I think somehow you got to get to Ospreay Shingo, right? Because those are the guys that are holding the belts right now. So does that mean Naito and Okada both lose on night 1 and then you go to Ospreay Shingo? Maybe. That feels like the straightforward booking, but also you could just remove the belts from the situation and then book Shingo and Ospreay for the 8th and and have a great match for whatever they call their linear championship without a belt. I don't know, whatever they want to do, right? It's all kind of wacky right now anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think I kind of lost the point there, but I do see those 4 guys in the mix as we head towards these 2 dome shows.
Yeah, and like you said, not quite sure how they're gonna work it out. They could do a main tournament, some kind of double gold dash, maybe we're gonna triple gold dash. I'm not sure, but there's definitely a lot of potential of stuff they can do, especially with the whole real world champion storyline going out there right now. So like me, Rambo and Slam Pig is picturing Okada Naito finals, Okada winning. I have Okada winning also. Chris, do you have a set lock on your A block, B block winners and a tournament winner this year?
Oh, I've got Okada Shingo as my final, I think. I haven't locked that in yet, but that's kind of the way I'm leaning. And I think this is Okada's tournament to win. Now, I've probably said that 2 years in a row now, and here we are in the third. But this one really feels like the right time to get Okada back into the top title picture. So, yeah, that's so I'm leaning towards Shingo winning a block, but not, like I said, like I love to say, anyone can win a block, right? Shingo wins the block, keeps him strong. He only has to set up one title match, right? He can, burn through a bunch of great singles matches and then lose to Okada in the final as the champion, though. So then you don't have to do that. You don't do that title match until Wrestle Kingdom, right? Yeah. So it kind of spreads out the champion has to defend against the people that beat him thing. So, and I think that then you head off into Wrestle Kingdom with Okada as the G1 winner.
Yeah, I think Okada being the G1 winner just makes a total ton of sense. There's so much story there with him and Shingo, him and Ospreay. I just think that it makes the most sense storyline-wise. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my only question here, or my only thought, is that Ibushi, Okada, and Tanahashi have all lost their first chance at the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, and the only person left kind of in that true upper echelon is Naito, who so I think maybe Naito beats Shingo in the G1, and then Shingo defends the championship against Naito at Power Struggle. And then those 4 guys, and kind of, in my belief, the whole story of the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship is to give that really upper echelon of New Japan something to strive for that they haven't accomplished. And like I said, all 4 of those guys then would have lost their first shot at that particular title, which I think is a really interesting wrinkle to the storyline too.
Yeah. And before we move on, I do want to plug our G131 Pick'em contest. So if you go to socialsuplex.com/G131 contest, we are running a Pick'em there. There's a Google form embedded on that page. All entries must be through that Google form. Only 1 entry per person. Signups will continue until the first day of the tournament before the first bell on September 18th. Got some great prizes for you. First place prize will get a $50 ProWrestlingTees.com gift card. Second place, you'll get Lions Pride, the Turbulent History of New Japan Pro Wrestling by Chris Charlton. And then third place is the King of Strong Style 1980 to 2014 biography by Shinsuke Nakamura. You get 1 point for a correct winner if you pick a draw correctly, 3 points for correct A block and B block winners, 2 points for the correct A and B block runner-ups, 3 points for the correct 3 points for the correct G1 final runner-up, and then 5 points for the correct G1 Climax 31 winner. So go ahead, enter that contest right now. socialsuplex.com/G131 contest. Get your picks in. You just heard a ton of stats and analysis from Chris and I and our predictions. So you can listen to us or not listen to us and see what happens. Now we had some more questions here from Reddit user Dom Honey 101. He says, any bold predictions for this year's G1 Climax? What are some upsets that we could possibly see? What could be a hidden gem in this tournament?
I think a hidden gem could be Chase Owens versus Yoshihashi. I'm just going to hang my hat on that now that I've said it once. I think Okada Goto, also another hidden gem. And then I just have a feeling that Great Okan's going to have like one of those matches that everyone kind of, keys in on him and is like, oh, this guy's good. Like can have good New Japan style matches. And maybe it's the next match with Naito because they're comfortable, or maybe him and Ishi come out and have a banger, which I think would be a certain possibility. Ishi elevates people, right?
Yeah.
Like we see that a lot. So I think that's a sleeper pick for, maybe not match of the tournament, but something that's worth, worth keeping an eye on, because I'm sure Great Okan is one of those guys that he needs this tournament as a singles guy and as an opportunity to show that he can kind of rip through some singles matches.
Yeah, I think that Ishii and Great Okan, like you mentioned, could be a gem. I also think Ishii and Tangaloa could be one of those that ends up being a hidden gem. I think Tangaloa is another guy that, much like you mentioned, like Great Okan is going to be a guy that has some really good matches that people are like, oh, wow, this guy's really good, and he's going to have some hidden gems in that A block. His next question, is it possible that NJPW could have Shingo win the G1 Climax to put juice on this whole 2 IWGP World Heavyweight Champion storyline?
Yes, but I also I feel like that's just very potentially too simple. With 2 dome shows plus another Wrestle Kingdom branded show, like I said, you need a bunch of guys elevated up to that level. And I don't think, if you had one show and Shingo's going to win the G1 and be like, give me Ospreay, this dude thinks he's the champ, boom, done, roasted, all done. Like, that's what we're doing, and it's going to be awesome. Like, that would make a ton of sense to me, but we're doing these double dome things. We're doing this double Wrestle Kingdom thing all the time, every year now. So, we kind of see how this goes. And this is the time when people just get bounced up to the main event scene, and they typically need 4 guys, and usually one of them's the title holder, one of them's the G1 winner, and one of them was, I guess, another title holder. And then somebody just randomly would say that they wanted to be involved. And right now, I guess it would be nice if there was still that second title, because then Ospreay could be the guy who says oh, I'm going to get in on this thing because I'm the real world champ or whatever. That would have been, it would have made so much sense, but we don't have that second belt anymore, really. So I guess we do. It's just on Will Ospreay in America.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think that would be awesome. I think Shingo winning a G1 would also be another step forward to New Japan respecting and elevating guys that didn't come up within their system, right? And we saw that recently with Kota Abushi even too. So the G1 is not as protected to their own anymore, which I think is good. It does open things up a little bit more. The kind of New Japan chosen ones that come up within the system. And Shingo's absolutely not that. He's so far away from that, being that more than anyone. So, but I think it's the simplest thing. It's the thing they would have done 4 years ago, right? But now we're in a different time. We're in a different era.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. If Shingo winning kind of kills off a lot of potential future title matches, and if he wins, it just elevates him on his whole other level by himself. Like you mentioned, you still got Power Struggle. We got 3 Wrestle Kingdom shows. You need some people to challenge him, and it just can't be Ospreay. So yeah, having him win elevates him way too hard. You kill off challengers, you kill off potential matchups. So with 3 Wrestle Kingdom shows, you need some challengers. So I do think Shingo will eat some losses and then not win the tournament. His next question, what is most likely to happen in this year's G1 Climax? Jeff Cobb running through his block and going undefeated, or Yujiro Takahashi going winless in this year's G1 Climax?
No. Nobody goes undefeated and nobody goes winless. That's not how the G1 works. It's hard. It's grueling. There's a lot of ways to get a fluke win. Toru Yano exists.
Yeah. Yujiro got 2 points last year.
He beat Jeff Cobb, which was dumb.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother thing. Yeah, that last night of, what was that, B Block? Was that B Block last year?
Yes, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that last night at B Block was awesome because there was a lot of stuff up in the air. That's the thing to keep an eye out on is like, what are the wacky scenarios that you're headed towards with tiebreakers and all that stuff? And that's the type of stuff that I try to put out there as much as I can, either on Twitter or on sportprowrestling.com through my previews and stuff. So nobody's going winless and nobody's going lossless. I made it too far into that sentence. Undefeated. That's the word. Nobody's going undefeated. But Cobb is Cobb's going to be a guy that I think he loses his block only because he loses to the guy who wins the block.
Right.
So I hope like hell we see Cobb, really get into that role this year. And Yujiro, I don't even know if he's the most likely to go winless if anyone was going to do it. There's a couple other options here.
I mean, yeah, Chase Owens is another guy.
Chase Owens exists.
So his next question, thoughts on the booking idea of having both Shingo, G1 winner, and Ospreay defend both of their titles on the first night of Wrestle Kingdom against opponents of each champion's choice?
I already kind of went on and on about that. What are your final thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just don't think Shingo winning the G1 is the best idea. I'm not really a big fan of them like picking their own opponents or picking each other's opponents. I really think the money is just having a one night be unification match. Those guys face off. You get the payoff of that. You figure out who the real world champion is, and then the real world champion faces the G1 winner, and then you get a match there. And then I don't know exactly how you get to the third big matchup. Like you mentioned, if there is New Year's Dash, you can do something to set that up. Or maybe it's one of those situations where like Naito beat Shingo and Shingo survives the unification. He survives the G1 winner. And then Naito's like, all right, well, I beat you in G1. You didn't face me at Power Struggle. I'm facing you on the 8th.
So you think they do the Shingo Ospreay match first?
Yeah. Because January 4th is still, considered like the headline Wrestle Kingdom, like the big. It's a traditional big event. So
but isn't that when the G1 winner gets the match? And I mean, I know Jay took the briefcase or whatever last year and made it for the 5th.
Yeah.
But doesn't the G1 winner almost always isn't the contract for the 4th?
Normally, but I'm thinking about last year with Jay kind of calling his shot. And so with the unification, it could be one of those things where like the IWGP committee is like, hey, we want to have a undisputed champion going forward. So we're going to go ahead and create our undisputed champion. Then a G1 winner will challenge the undisputed champion.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. But I mean, they could do it the other way around. You could have the G1 winner face Shingo night 1, the legit champion, and then the winner of that the next night faces Ospreay to unify the belts. And
that's how you get to Okada and Ospreay at the Tokyo Dome, like they were supposed to do in May.
Yeah, I think we're getting Okada Ospreay regardless.
Somehow,
I could see Ospreay beating Shingo, unifying the titles, becoming the real world champion, facing Okada the next night, beating Okada in the Dome as the real world champion.
Mm-hmm. And then heading off into the 50th anniversary year of 2022.
Right. And then if Naito has a claim, Naito Ospreay's a protected match that they haven't done. You do that January 8th, big matchup, real world champ Will Ospreay versus Tetsuya Naito, trying to get his first IWGP World title.
I'm gonna have to take that week off.
Gato, you're welcome. I've saved you. I've booked out your Wrestle Kingdom shows. Send a check in the mail. I'm happy to replace Dick Togo in the Booker's room.
As campy and weird as the I'm the real world champion thing that Ospreay's doing, it does open up some really cool stuff for these double dome nights. All connected through the G1, right? And I think we might see it all kind of pan out during the G1, or they might do that thing that they did. I think it was 2019 when just the 4 guys ended up in the ring at the end of Power Struggle, and they didn't actually say anything, but everyone was like, "Oh, that's what we're doing."
Yeah.
But I think something might get set up in San Jose.
A battle in the valley.
and Battle in the Valley, because that's where Will Ospreay will be. He's announced for that show, right?
Yes.
And that's the next time, I think, on the calendar that guys from Japan who are needed in Japan for any period of time would be able to leave for based on like the 2-week quarantine and all that. They could leave after Power Struggle. They could be gone for a little while. And, I don't think those top guys are going to be a part of World Tag League. So I wouldn't doubt that that's the show that Wrestle Kingdom becomes a little more clear.
Yeah, dude.
It's literally just a hunch. I know nothing. I talk to nobody.
I don't know, man. You got a sneaky little grin on.
I don't know what you're talking. No, I really don't. I don't know anything, but the writing seems to be on the wall for that, because somehow you got to get these guys in the same place as Will Ospreay.
Right.
Or at least whoever's going to be involved with Ospreay has to get in the same place as Will Ospreay, because that's how New Japan sets up big angles. Right. You put people in the same place, and that's how it happens there.
And we saw with Resurgence, like they really try to make that show a big show with a lot of surprise angles. The Ospreay promo, God confronting Good Brothers. Like they want to make those shows newsworthy, and especially with Battle in the Valley being the same day as AEW Full Gear, you're definitely going to be competing for space on the timeline. But with the time zone, that's going to be a crazy day. I mean, right as Full Gear goes off the air, Battle in the Valley will be starting. So if you want to stay up, you're going to have 2 great shows to watch that night.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be in San Jose, so if anyone's there, obviously
you're going?
I'm going.
Nice.
I got some miles to use. So, but I was disappointed, and I know you've got in the news. We may as well talk about now. Jon Moxley's being taken off that show.
Yeah,
he'll obviously be on Full Gear, so that's super disappointing. But I also feel like that means there's probably a make good that comes with that from New Japan to get the buzz back up, right? So this is all like, those are just the pieces and the dots that I'm connecting, right? So, and I'm really hopeful that that's the truth. And even if it's not a surprise, even if it's someone announced, like they're gonna put the people involved in Wrestle Kingdom, I think, are gonna be involved that night, because I think you got to put those guys in the ring for your B-roll so you can make those VTRs.
So is this officially the Moxley incident?
Oh, I don't know. Right. I mean, like I knew when they announced that. I was sitting in the building, and I was like, dang, that means Moxley's probably off. And I was like, and I was like, and dang, I'm going to be in San Jose. And like, clearly probably not able to watch that show, because I'm not going to watch it like on my phone from the arena in San Jose. So disappointing. And a shame that New Japan is a little inflexible when they do dates like this. And a lot of that, I think, probably comes from travel and things like that. But, it wouldn't suck if New Japan was like, we're going to bounce to the Sunday.
Yeah.
But that's just not how they operate.
Yeah. They did change the start time to 8 p.m. Pacific. So it will start as soon as Full Gear is over. Yeah, those AEW pay-per-views have gone to almost 9 Pacific, though, so I think there's gonna be some overlap there. But on a Saturday night, I don't know that they're gonna lose a lot of pay-per-view buys. I think people who are gonna buy it they're gonna buy it, and the New Japan pay-per-views aren't nearly as expensive as the AEW ones either. So or it's gonna be on World in a couple days anyway. So if things keep going the way they do with Fight TV, it's gonna be on World the day after, because the Fight TV feed was so bad. Yeah. So Dom Homie's last question here. What are some hidden gems of G1 Climax matches to watch? Oh, in general? Yeah, I think it was in general. Katsuyori Shibata versus Tomohiro Ishii from G1 23. My favorite sub 15-minute match of all time. Probably my favorite actual match of all time. It's like 12 minutes, and it's a sprint of all sprints. If you've never seen that match, stop what you're doing and find it. It's incredible. It's my favorite. And that's what you get in some of these G1s, and under 30, right? And the other one that I'm gonna bring up, I guess, is Okada Omega from the G1. It's actually
I feel like I'm crazy whenever I say this, but I think it's actually my favorite Okada Omega match because they had just done the time limit draw in their most recent match before that. I think that's what how the timeline works. And then they came out and they wrestled a completely different style match because they both wanted to win in a G1 match and they knew they couldn't go 60 because the time limit. So anytime that you put guys in the ring and the time limit comes to play, Okada Sonata from G129 also same way. The drama builds because of that 30-minute time limit on these big epic matches. So I guess those are the three I'll throw out there.
Yeah, for me, like I mentioned earlier, the Yuji Nagata versus Yoshihashi match from the 2017 G1 is a hidden gem. It was a banger, really good matchup. That was towards the beginning of the tournament. I think the Ospreay Lance Archer match from Dallas has been, at the time, got a lot of buzz, but I feel people have forgotten about that match, and I rewatched that recently, and that was still as awesome as it was live in the building. So that's definitely one to check out. Trying to think if anything else comes to mind. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, there's matches with like Marufuji on from the G1 to check out. Prince Devitt had some runs in the G1, so if you're a big Finn Balor fan, there's a ton of stuff of him to check out as well. And last question here from my girlfriend Jen. She wants to know what our favorite G1 tournaments are or have been.
Oh, that's tough too. I just had that discussion with the Voices of Wrestling group. We were talking about like what's the best G1, and my favorite is 2019 G1 29. I think they mixed up. I think there were 6 new entrants. You had Jon Moxley coming in. You had a lot of exciting stuff happening. You had Kenta coming in. It was really fresh, and it was fresh in a way that they needed it to be because they had just lost Kenny Omega and Cody and the Elite and all that whole group was gone by then. And that was the sign that like New Japan's still going to be a player in the Western world, I think, in a way that's really meaningful. So I think that tournament said a lot about the future of New Japan. And, you know, there's a part of me that knows that this year doesn't feel that way. But I do look at, you know, New Japan as a company that's still has a huge role in pro wrestling. And I know that there are people that are really exciting in pro wrestling right now who are interested in coming over for a G1. So I think getting to know the tournament, getting to know the expectations of the tournament and how it goes can only lead to a greater experience next year when maybe some of those guys do show up.
Yeah, and my answer is actually the same as yours. 2019 is also my favorite G1 tournament. Because I was there for the opening day in Dallas and first time we got our first media credentials. We got to be a part of the press conference and interview the wrestlers, so that was really cool. And then, like you mentioned, it was just a really exciting tournament where you have Moxley showing up, you had Kenta showing up, and just, you know, the whole like Shibata involving with the Kenta turn. Like, there's just so much like cool stuff. Like you mentioned, like a lot of people were worried with like the Elite gone and Kenny being gone, but yeah, that G1, like I said, introduced a bunch of new players. Archer had a great G1, and then you had the inclusions of Ospreay and Shingo. There's just a lot of cool stuff that happened in that 2019 G1. So coming up, so we mentioned the opening days of G1, A block and B block are happening this weekend, September 18th and 19th in Osaka. So let's take a look at those cards real quick and give our thoughts and predictions for those. So on September 18th, the show's actually going to open up with a Young Lion matchup. Oiwa will be taking on Sho. So I just think that's going to be obviously keep the momentum going for Sho in his recent turn in the House of Torture, and then a great way for Oiwa to get some experience wrestling a veteran guy on the roster. So obviously it's going to end with a shock arrow for Oiwa, and Sho will get the win there.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what these guys do with more experienced members of the roster that we've only seen them wrestle each other. So, so I'm glad that they're on a lot of these shows. They're not on every show, but they're on a lot of these shows.
Then the first G1 match of the night will be Kota Abushi versus Yujiro Takahashi.
I mean, I think Abushi wins this. I think Abushi comes out strong, starts off his tournament well. Kind of a bummer to see Ibushi in this match, but I guess last year Will Ospreay was coming off of a kind of a hiatus, COVID, COVID related. He hadn't wrestled in New Japan in a while, and his first match was against Yujiro too. So
and that match was pretty good.
It was good. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, it was like, oh, okay, Will can still go, and Yujiro's going to actually wrestle. So, I think maybe there's something to getting his feet back under him with his first match here before he really heads into the meat of the tournament.
Yeah, I think it's a great way for him to kind of get his footing and get reacclimated. So yeah, I think Ibushi is going to get the win here, Kamigoye, and defeat Yujiro. Then the third match of the night will be Great-O-Khan versus Tanga Loa.
I think this one's a little bit more of a toss-up because Okan, I don't think he's going to be at the top of the block. I think he's going to have a good tournament, but I don't think he's going to be a player. So he's got to eat some losses, and at some point you need to make Tanga Loa relevant. So maybe that's now, or maybe Okan does pull out the winner, the victory here. I think this one's a little more 50-50 than pretty much any other match on the card. So, but I think if I had to give it to someone, I'm going to give it to Okan.
I'm also going to give it to Okan, but you made a great point about Tanga Loa, and something to think about too when you look at like world tag leagues with these guys. Tanga Loa is usually the one that's protected, and he's usually the one that's getting the pinfalls. So he is booked very strongly when he is in tournaments and when it comes to him and Tama. So yeah, it could be him getting a big win and being a guy that has a better G1 than we think. But I'm leaning towards Okan as well. Then the fourth match of the night is going to be Toru Yano versus Kenta.
This should be fun because Kenta can get into the goofiness. So I don't know if it really matters who wins this.
This could be a banana peel slip up and Kenta loses 2 points and Yano gets his 2 points, or Kenta could just win. I'm leaning towards Kenta though.
Yeah, you think they just go clean for the first night?
Yeah,
sure, that works.
Then semi-main event, we have Tetsuya Naito versus Zack Saber Jr. We've seen these guys butt heads through the whole Dangerous Tekkers LIJ rivalry recently.
Yeah, this will be great. This is one of those matches that I think people would have, typically have earmarked for the G1. So I think Naito wins for no other reason than I think he's more of a player in the game right now. But I think this will be an awesome match.
Yeah, I think Naito wins as well. That also opens the door for another tag team title match. And then I think Naito's the guy I have winning this A block. And so I definitely think he's going to need a lot of wins to get to that finals. Then the big main event here for night one is going to be a Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii versus the Dragon, the world champ Shingo Takagi.
I think Shingo gets the win here. Shingo lost to Ishi in last year's G1. So I think he gets his win back here. And I think it'll be, there's no reason to believe this won't be great.
Yeah, I think it's going to end up being one of the best matches of the whole tournament. I do have Ishii on upset alert to kind of get that big win, that big, usually night one is usually some kind of upset. So I think Ishii, obviously, in previous times, it wouldn't be considered that much of an upset, but since Shingo has been elevated and is the world champ now, I think Ishii beating him would be a pretty big upset on this night, and yeah, makes Shingo have to really scratch and claw to get to the finals.
For the stopwatch watchers, Shingo and Ishii have gone 22-41, 27-04, and 26-01 in the three matches. So you can probably anticipate a 25-minute plus main event here. So,
and it will be great.
Settle in and get into it. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Then we look at night 2, Sunday, September 19th, also in Osaka. Show opening up with Vegeta taking on Sho. Probably going to be very similar to the Oiwa match, but like we mentioned, great to see what these guys will do against somebody that's experienced like Sho. Then the second match of the night, first G1 match, will be Yoshihashi versus Evil.
Oh, wow. We go back to back with the House of Torture stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Dang.
Hey, at least you get it out of the way at the beginning of the show.
Yeah. I think Evil wins this because, again, I think he's in the mix. Yoshihashi probably tops out at maybe 6 points for the tournament. So easy call on that one.
Yeah, unfortunately, going Evil. I definitely think he's going to be alive on the final block night. The third match of the night, Jeff Cobb versus the crown jewel Chase Owens.
Sleeper for a good match, I think.
Yeah.
Depending on what Chase Owens is doing this tournament, right? Like, what's the angle, the story, the booking, right? Depending on what that is. And if it's nothing and it's just he's there to have 10 to 12 minute matches early on the card, then I think we'll know that really quick, because then him and Jeff Cobb will just have a match and it'll be really good. But I think Cobb wins. I think Cobb's going to dominate through this tournament, as I've kind of said. So I think that you got to kick him off strong in that way.
Yeah, I could see Chase doing a gimmick in this tournament where he tries to package pile drive everybody, and that kind of what makes him lose all his matches. So I can see him trying desperately to lift Cobb in the package pile driver, not get it, and then Cobb just wrecks his day. So yeah, Cobb gets the win.
How do you go from a package pile driver to the Tour of the Islands? That's a tough counter.
I'm not sure, but if anybody could figure it out, it would be Jeff Cobb.
Yep. Figure out just his arms in just the right place to like pick him up out of being bent over like that.
Yeah,
awesome.
Maybe he like reverses into a backdrop, but like mid backdrop, he like presses him up, catches him, and then does the Tour of the Islands. I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah. The next matchup we have Cold Skull Sonata versus Tama Tonga.
I think Sonata wins this. I think Sonata comes out strong. I think the story is that Sonata was a finalist last year, so they keep him strong through the front half of this tournament to remind people of that. And again, hopefully this is another one of those just matches that, and Tama Tonga shows up, and hopefully this gives us a clue of what those particular, Tama Tonga and Chase Owens are going to be doing through this tournament.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Sonata here. I think Sonata's going to be another one of those guys that's going to be fighting towards the top of the block. But yeah, it's going to be a good sign to see what both of these guys are going to look like in this tournament. Then the semi-main event, we're going to have Hiroki Goto versus Taichi.
The G in G1 stands for Goto.
I'm going with Taichi here. Like I said, I'm fighting the big dangerous Tekker man here, and I think he's going to have a really good G1 tournament, and I think Goto's a great guy to kind of start off with. Then that's going to lead us to our main event for the first B block night. The ace, the IWGP US Heavyweight Champion, Hiroshi Tanahashi, is going to take on Kazuchika Okada.
See, I think Tanahashi wins this, even though I think Okada wins the block. And I think that's just purely because I think Tanahashi's hot right now, and frequently in the G1, the winner doesn't start strong. So I think maybe that's the story with Okada. Obviously, these guys, generational rivals, they can go either way. I won't be like shocked. It won't be a Rainmaker shock if Okada wins this match, but I'm picking Tanahashi to create the element of doubt.
Yeah, I'm right there in line with you. I have Tanahashi beating Okada on my bracket as well. All the reasons you mentioned. He's IWGP US champ. He's coming in hot. Okada's coming in cold. So yeah, I think Okada's gonna have the kind of the long run to get to the finals, and so yeah, I think a Tanahashi upset. Like I mentioned, night one, there's a lot of upsets, and yes, it's not really quote unquote that big of an upset because these guys have both beaten each other, but Tanahashi is older, kind of on the downswing, while Okada's still pretty young. He's the current, the real ace of the company, and so Tanahashi beating him at this stage in both of their careers is definitely going to be an upset for night one.
Let's do it.
Yep, so that wraps up the G1 preview. We'll be back next week to review those first two nights, and also we'll be reviewing the whole tournament for the next month. And don't forget to enter our contest, socialsuplex.com/G1 31 contests. Get your picks in. You have until the opening bell on Saturday morning to get those picks in. Remember, first place prize, $50 Pro Wrestling Tees gift card. Second place, Lions Pride by Chris Charlton. And third place, King of Strong Style by Shinsuke Nakamura. So now let's talk about New Japan Strong real quick. So this past Friday, we had the LA Dojo Showcase number 2. Did you guys check this show out, Chris?
I am behind on Strong, ironically, because as of this week, I'll be ahead because I was there for the tapings. So no, I did not. I didn't have a chance to check that out.
Really good show. I thought the showcase was better than the first showcase they did. Show opened up with Kevin Knight defeating the DKC, 9 minutes and 44 seconds. Those guys are just getting so much better, and kind of a big deal, Kevin Knight beating DKC this time around and making some real strides there. The second match, it was Clark Connors defeating Alex Coughlin, 10 minutes and 44 seconds. We've been seeing Coughlin in these trial match series, a special singles match challenge that he's been doing, and another really solid matchup here. These guys obviously know each other so well, and just sort of really hard hitting, and Clark ends up getting the win here. And then the main event, which I just absolutely loved, it was Ren Narita defeating the Alpha Wolf Carl Fredericks, 12 minutes and 38 seconds. Narita just looked so great in this match, hits the Narita special belly-to-belly suplex. To me, that's kind of an upset win because Narita's still, rocking the black trunks. He's not really, created this whole persona or gimmick yet, and beat the established, Alpha Wolf Carl Fredericks, who's been, graduated for over a year now, kind of the top guy in the LA Dojo. They've had history in the Young Lions Cup, which Carl Fredericks won in 2019. So just a really, really good matchup there. And then post-match, we had Fred Rosser coming out and challenging Ren Narita for Fighting Spirit Unleashed, which obviously is already taped. Chris, you were in attendance for that, and that will be coming up down the pike here for New Japan Strong.
It's worth the hype. Yeah, it's worth the build for sure.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Like, they've done a great job heating that rivalry up, and I love the trajectory that Ren Narita's on right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Narita looks awesome. He's got to be on the cusp of coming back to Japan and showing up for something. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know if he's heavyweight, right? I think right.
I feel like it could be either way. I feel like he might start junior.
He might start junior and then bulk out, I guess. But yeah, he's great. He's good, really good, strong professional wrestler. And if he's going to take on kind of a Shibata style, maybe he never loses the black trunks, right? Yeah. Like maybe that's just his look. Maybe because he's one of the first guys who I quote unquote went on excursion, and he went on excursion to the LA Dojo and didn't change his look at all during his time away. So maybe this is his look. Maybe he's going to do kind of a shoot style thing, and he doesn't need more than just the black trunk look. So, but yeah, I don't think he's quite to heavyweight, which is why I was a little surprised when he beat Fredericks here.
Right. He also beat Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson.
Right. That was a great match.
Yeah.
That's a match to go look at for sure. So yeah, I'm excited to see what he does when he comes back. And I hope it's a lot of what he's doing right now.
Yeah. We had a question here from Reddit user fit_beautiful2638. Says, you both had Ren Narita as your number one lion of the past 4 years. Can you explain what made him top of the class to both of you? Any Narita Young Lion matches I should go watch? So, Chris, a couple of weeks ago, Josh and I, we kind of ranked out our Young Lions, and Ren Narita was on the top for us since we've started watching. So since like 2017, every Young Lion that we've seen, Narita's on top for both of us. And for me, I just think, like you mentioned, he just has that Shibata element to him, just very hard hitting, very snug. He's a wrestler. He goes out there, he throws chops and suplexes and ground and pounds, and I just thought he's always been very aggressive, even from being in a Young Lion through the Lions Break shows they used to do, the Lionsgate Project shows. For me, I love his match from the 2017 Young Lions Cup against Yagi. That's like one of the best Young Lion matches I've seen, and that was just a banger match there for Narita.
Yeah, I mean, and I think honestly, every time he's shown up on Strong, he's been great. I think I'll recommend the future match against Fred Rosser because it's good, really good. So when that pops up on New Japan Strong on one of these Saturday nights now coming up, I think it's probably on the second episode that was filmed at Fighting Spirit Unleashed. So not this week, but next week. It's worth it. That's another one of those matches that can highlight that like he's ready to go.
Yeah, Narita's just always, even from Young Lion stages, this has been so awesome, and it's just been also awesome to see him grow and get all these, spotlight victories and moments. So looking forward to seeing that Fred Rosser match. But like you mentioned, Fighting Spirit Unleashed will be Saturday, September 18th. So you get G1 in the morning, you get Fighting Spirit Unleashed 8 p.m. Eastern Time on NJPW World. This is the season premiere, they're calling it, for Strong. We're going to get obviously new location. We're getting fans in attendance. Chris, you were there for these tapings, and just a whole new, energy to Strong. So on the season premiere, we're going to have the main event, the tables match between Juice Robinson and Hikuleo. Then there's going to be Hiroshi Tanahashi teaming up with Carl Furtis and Clark Connors to take on the Stray Dog Army of Bateman, Mysterioso, and Barrett Brown. Then the opener, Big Tom, Tomohiro Ishii, will be next in line for Alex Coughlin in the Alex Coughlin Challenge Series.
Yeah, Ishi Coughlin, that match is awesome. It was the first match of the night, and it might have kept up as the match of the night too. So really, really, really fun match. So I'm not going to spoil anything or give anything away. Like I said, I was there. The tapings were really fun. If you have an opportunity to go to Strong tapings, it's not like you're sitting through like, 3 hours of AEW Dark. Like it feels like a real New Japan show. If you're in Texas or Philadelphia or wherever else they end up going, like I highly recommend the experience. I think that they did a really nice job of making things flow smoothly, even though they're taping 3 or 4 maybe different episodes of TV. So really fun experience, really cool experience. So and a little more intimate than some of the bigger shows that they're going to be running in the US. So I'm excited to see how it comes across on TV.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to these tapings. I feel like Strong has been one of the best like bell-to-bell pro wrestling shows this year. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but I do think with getting some crowds and getting this energy is going to definitely help elevate the show. And yeah, I'm thinking about those Philadelphia tapings, man. Like you, I got some like Southwest points, and I'm like, maybe I can make this work.
I mean, the Texas tapings look really good, but I can understand why someone wouldn't want to run off to Texas right now. But there's going to be some good stuff, I think, on all these dates, and I'm curious where they're going to go next too. So you got to figure they're going to announce something past what they've got another set of California tapings
right after Battle in the Valley. They got the Detonation tour,
right? So Texas, Philly, California, they just keep skipping me in Chicago.
Man, you've had enough stuff in Chicago, man.
I know, but clearly it's a good market.
Yeah, it's obviously a great wrestling market, great wrestling town. If they need help finding a building here in Tampa, I mean, I can help. Rocky, hit me up, man. I'll help you. I'll point you in the right direction. We'll get New Japan here. I mean, we already had New Japan here in Tampa at the beginning of 2020, but I can help them find some better buildings than they ran that night. So last thing here, we got some few news items here, and then we'll go to the recommended match of the week. While I'm running through this, I forgot to ask you, Chris, to have a recommended match ready. I'm not sure if you have one ready.
Yeah, sure.
So
all over it.
So
well, I've got one in the back of my mind. I just hope you guys haven't done it already.
Well, honestly, I don't know. Josh is kind of the better keeper of the list and keeps track of that stuff. To me, I forget so easily, so it could be something we've done. I'm sure our listeners will probably forget, and I know you'll pick a banger, so it'll be fine anyway. So some news items here. Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay have been beefing on Twitter after the PWI rankings came out, where Kenny Omega was ranked number 1 for the second time. Will Ospreay ranked number 7. A lot of back and forth between those guys, and man, I gotta say, this match needs to happen.
I think a lot of people are really hopeful that travel is a lot easier in January.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about, coming from a main event like Okada versus Ospreay. That's a dome main event right there.
You want to talk about how New Year's Dash hasn't had a lot of big surprises lately?
That would be dope, yeah.
I mean, if they want to make a splash, that's probably the time.
Yeah, next thing I have here, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Robbie Eagles will be joining the Autumn Attack shows that are happening in Dallas, Texas. We also got some more matches announced for the Autumn Attack Tour in Texas. So night 1, September 25th, Jay White will be taking on Robbie Eagles. So champion versus champion there, never champ versus the Junior Heavyweight Champ. Then also on night 1, the Mega Coaches will reunite. Rocky Romero and Ryusuke Taguchi, they will take on the West Coast Wrecking Crew. Then on night 2, September 26th, Robbie Eagles will be teaming with the Dirty Daddy Chris Dickinson to take on Bullet Club's Chris Bay and El Phantasmo. And then on night 2, September 26th, Yuya Uemura will be taking on TJP. And Chris, I don't know if you've seen the pictures of Uemura going around with the white boots that he wore at an indie show this past weekend.
I heard about the white boots. I'm excited to see whatever our boy does. I mean, I don't know if you guys have told the story of how nuts we went when he got that pin in LA, but I'm following his every move.
Yeah, I think we mentioned it when we reviewed the show, but yeah, me, you, and Josh, we just lost our minds when our boy Uemura got the big win at Resurgence, kicking off his excursion in a great way, and seems like he's tearing it up in the indies. He's going to be a highlight here on Strong, big match of TJP, and I'm wondering if they're going to go the Ren Narita route. I mean, Narita beats guys like Chris Dickinson. Could Uemura beat a guy like TJP, who's not really heavily pushed on? I mean, he's a main factor in Strong, but he's not like he's a guy that's been super protected, and it could be a match he could win.
It's absolutely a match he can win. It's a match he should win when we really think about it. Thinking long term over here.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
We already talked about the Battle in the Valley situation with Moxley being pulled and Ospreay being announced for the event and the start time being moved up to 8 p.m. And the last thing I had here, last week on Impact, David Finlay got his win back over Chris Bay, but then post-match, Hikuleo made his Impact debut, attacked Finlay and Juice Robinson, laid them out, and there's going to be a tag match coming up with Chris Bay and Hikuleo versus Finn Juice. So, any thoughts on the Bullet Club invasion and Impact?
No, I think it's. I hope that that's an extension of kind of Bullet Club original. It seems to be that way. I'm so curious where they see Hikuleo slotting. Like once he gets back to Japan, like I want to see him like in the ring with Great O'Khan, right? And like that type of matchup, like that could be. He could do some stuff. I think he's ready for a run in New Japan proper. So he's big. Like that's a big dude.
Yeah.
And he's good. The feud with Finlay and Juice has been a good character builder, I think. I don't know that he's ever going to be like your work rate guy, but I think that getting some time on AEW, getting some time on Impact, like they clearly see something with Hikuleo. So I got to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And that wraps it up for the news. Dom, homie, I know you had some fight questions, but we're not the guys for that. So hopefully when Josh comes back, he can answer some of those for you. The last thing we have here is recommended match of the week. So last week I recommended for listeners to watch Kenny Omega versus Tetsuya Naito from the 2016 G1 Climax, which was just an awesome matchup there.
What a chalk recommendation.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with Kenny Omega and Tetsuya Naito. So, Chris, do you have a recommended match of the week for us?
Yeah, I'm going to go back just a little bit further and stay on theme here, I guess. I'm going to go with the 2013 G1 final, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Tetsuya Naito. 2013, really, really, really good G1 tournament, and the final lived up.
Nice. Looking forward to watching that. I love Tanahashi and Naito together. They have some great matches. They had a great match last year in the G1 that I was hoping that was going to lead to some kind of title match between those two, but didn't end up happening. But yeah, guys have great chemistry, so definitely looking forward to rewatching that match for recommended match of the week. And that's going to wrap things up. Chris, thanks so much for joining me here this week to preview the G1. Give your plugs out. Tell our listeners where they can find you online.
Yeah, sure. So I'm on Twitter at the Chris Samsa. I will be posting daily G1 previews at sportofprowrestling.com, and they'll probably also appear at voicesofwrestling.com. So every day I will update on what's going on in the tournament and what that next card's matches entail, what stats and facts and figures and little nuggets that I send off to the broadcast team and things like that. So every day a new preview. Every day that there's a show. So keep an eye out for that. So yeah, sportofprowrestling.com and Twitter at the Chris Samsa.
Nice. And next week we'll be back to review the first two nights of the G1 Climax 31. The man behind the NJPW EXT, Danny, will be joining us to review those first two nights. Also, remember to send your audio in for the 200th episode that we're having coming up in a couple weeks. And remember, Rocky Romero will be joining us for that show. So a lot of big stuff happening here at Keeping It Strong Style. Don't forget to enter the G1 contest, socialsuplex.com/G131 contest. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. I am at Jeremy L. Donovan. The network is at Social Suplex. You can follow me, facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. We have The Grave Consequences with Caleb and Maserati. 8-Bit Suplex with Josh number 2. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. And The Great Match Generator with Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban. Love you, young boy.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
Freakonomics Radio is sponsored by Adidas. Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
If you've ever been a renter, you know it's stressful to find a place with everything you love and nothing you don't. But did you know Zillow does rentals? It makes the search so easy. They have filters for pretty much everything, so you can find that place that's in your budget, but also isn't a shoebox. Or a place that's close to your parents, but far enough they have to call first. Plus, it's easy to apply, request tours, and pay rent in the app. Head to ZillowRentals.com and find your sweet spot.